Chapter 16, 89. The terrifying aura instantly crushed down like Mount Tai. It was many times more tyrannical than before. The Joeing Demon King was really starting to get serious. As a terrifying existence that was above the peak of the celestial realm, the Joeing Demon King had once fought against an ancient ferocious beast like the Kuanping. One could imagine how tyrannical his strength was. In the eyes of many people, Yi Shiwen was almost certain to die. Being targeted by so many big shots, it would be difficult for Yi Shiwen not to die. Moreover, this time, the human clan, who was supposed to be Yi Shiwen's solid shield, did not help him. On the contrary, they thought that they were threatening him. Complete corpse? If I really die, what difference does it make? Do you think I can come up to find you after I go to hell? Yi Shiwen sneered, looked at the Joeing Demon King, and said, "It is absolutely impossible to get anything from me. Today there is only one battle." Long-winded. At this time, the patriarch of the North Mountain clan instantly attacked Yi Shiwen. He was not even in the mood to say a few more words to Yi Shiwen. He directly attacked Yi Shiwen. The mighty torrent of energy engulfed everything, and the sky completely collapsed. In front of this king-grade expert, the sky was as fragile as a paper tiger, and a terrible wound was instantly torn open in the sky. Yi Shiwen is finished. Sigh, I still quite admire him. He dares to challenge these overlords. This is not something that ordinary people can do. Yes, these overlords, any one of them, is a terrifying existence that can shake the ancient times with a stomp of their feet. And at this time, just when everyone thought that Yi Shiwen was going to die, suddenly, an endless amount of Zhen Yuan burst out from his body in an instant, and a mecha instantly appeared on his body. His whole body seemed to be wrapped in endless steel, and the aura of his body also continued to rise bit by bit. Celestial Realm Middle Stage, Celestial Realm Late Stage, Celestial Realm Peak. Boom! Yi Shiwen spread out his hands and took the blow of the North Mountain Clan chief. Rumbling sounds of explosions continued to erupt in his hands. The terrifying power pushed Yi Shiwen back several steps in a row. Although Yi Shiwen had fallen into a disadvantageous position, but he still managed to hold on. Everyone was stunned as they looked at the scene before them. How is this possible? Everyone was dumbfounded at once, looking at the scene in front of them. If Yi Shiwen unexpectedly defeated Feng Wuying, it was still within the scope of everyone's understanding. But now, Yi Shiwen could even withstand the attack of the North Mountain Clan chief, which completely shocked everyone. After all, this was the authentic North Mountain Clan chief, not the fake one from before. And from the looks of it, although it was strenuous, it wasn't as if he couldn't fight back at all. How did he become so powerful? Someone finally asked in astonishment. He couldn't believe it at all. How can Yi Shiwen be so terrifying? The North Mountain Clan chief grunted and looked at Yi Shiwen, seemingly a little strange. How could Yi Shiwen take his blow? Although he didn't use his full strength. Even if it was just an ordinary blow, it was enough to destroy an ordinary Celestial Realm Peak Master. Such a blow could even move mountains and seas. Even a Celestial Realm Peak Master would be seriously injured by this blow, let alone Yi Shiwen. Although Yi Shiwen defeated Feng Wuying just now, everyone could see that Yi Shiwen was at most at the middle stage of Celestial Realm, not even the late stage of Celestial Realm. But now he took a casual blow from him. This was too strange. At this time, everyone noticed the layer of mecha on Yi Shiwen's body. Under the sunlight, it was glowing with a metallic luster. "This is armor?" the North Mountain Clan chief said with some surprise. He also felt a little strange in his heart. What kind of armor was this? How could it make Yi Shiwen's strength soar by several levels in an instant? Even the North Mountain Clan's seven-colored divine robe only had a magical effect on defense. It was impossible to have such great power in other aspects, let alone raising a person's strength by several levels, raising Yi Shiwen to the level of Celestial Realm Peak in one go. Not only the North Mountain Clan chief, but even the Joeing Monster King, Taiyang King, and the others were a little shocked, but it was just a shock. No matter how much Yi Shiwen's strength improved, he was only at the level of Celestial Realm Peak. Compared with them, he was still far behind. What's more, Such a magic tool should not be able to be used for a long time. Yi Shiwen's death was almost a certainty. It was nothing at all. This is a little interesting. This kid still has a lot of benefits. A look of greed flashed in the eyes of the Jiuying Monster King. To be able to raise a person to the level of Celestial Realm Peak, if this kind of magic tool could be mass-produced, no, even if only 2 or 3 could be produced, it would be enough to greatly improve the strength of the Jiuying clan. What kind of magic tool is this? It's so amazing that it can improve a person's strength so much. Many people below were even more excited at once. This time, it really felt like there were some twists and turns. You do have a knack, but it ends here. Let me test your level. At this time, the Jiuying Monster King said. His big hand grabbed toward the void and grabbed a long spear with strange patterns. A domineering and peerless demonic aura spread out from his body. His eyes stared at Yi Shiwen with a look of interest. If it was before, except for the young Kuan Peng, nothing on Yi Shiwen could attract his attention. But now it was not the case. This kid seemed to be not simple. Come on, Jiuying Monster King. Yi Shiwen looked at the Jiuying Monster King and said. His expression was a little cold and a little crazy, but his tone was calm. The betrayal of the human clan just now did not seem to affect him at all. Whoosh! The 9-headed fierce beast Demon King's spear shot out in an instant, and the laws followed it like a shadow. It pierced through the vast sky, and wherever it passed, the spear's radiance shattered the sky. A shocking crack swept towards Yi Shiwen at lightning speed. Compared to the casual attack of the North Mountain Clan chief, the Jiuying Monster King was serious. The terrifying scene was even more terrifying than before. It was as fast as a swan, and in an instant, it had already shattered the sky and bombarded in front of Yi Shiwen. And at this time, Yi Shiwen finally moved. In his body, an endless stream of spiritual ether swept out, and his aura was monstrous, soaring into the sky. The angel's sword in his hand was suddenly unsheathed, and with a sword light that filled the sky, it slashed through the sky. The terrifying sword pressure crushed the sky, crushed down, and slashed fiercely on the Jiuying Monster King's spear light. Boom! A terrifying collision sound was produced in the void out of nowhere. With the point of explosion as the center, it swept in all directions like the Big Bang of the universe, and a huge mushroom cloud covered the sky. Compared to the current fight, the fight between Yi Shiwen and Feng Wuing just now was simply like a child's play. This was a terrifying confrontation that surpassed the level of the ordinary peak of the celestial realm. Everyone only saw a huge burst of light in the sky, and in an instant, the light that could blind ordinary people burst out. Fortunately, the people present were not ordinary people, and the weakest one was also the leader of a force at the 9th level of the celestial realm. And at this time, a shocking spear light broke through the light that filled the sky and directly smashed that huge mushroom cloud. It turned out that after the Jiuying Monster King's shocking spear light broke through Yi Shiwen's sword light, it swept towards Yi Shiwen with irresistible force. Yi Shiwen hastily arranged a series of arrays in the air in order to stop the spear light. However, they couldn't stop the spear light from sweeping across the sky. It crushed all the arrays with a loud bang, and then the terrifying spear light directly fell on Yi Shiwen's body with unimaginable power. Boom! A huge roar sounded, and Yi Shiwen's chest was directly penetrated on the spot. The part that protected his chest was also blasted into a big hole in an instant, and Yi Shiwen's whole body was pierced through. If Yi Shiwen had not dodged at the critical moment, just that one attack would have completely shattered Yi Shiwen's heart. This spear light carried an unparalleled power, and Yi Shiwen was blasted away. His whole body was like a kite with a broken string, flying towards the sky. As expected, no matter how strong Yi Shiwen is, compared to these kings of the King Division, he can't compete with them. How terrifying. This is the first time I saw a King Division expert go all out, and he crippled Yi Shiwen with just one move. This is the terrifying expert that truly rules over our ancient Barons continent. Someone said with lingering fear. Almost in an instant, Yi Shiwen, who was originally majestic, was defeated in an instant. He had no power to fight back and was heavily injured with just one spear light. This was even with that impressive armor. Otherwise, Yi Shiwen would have been blasted into a cloud of blood mist on the spot. The difference between the 8th level of the Celestial Realm and the peak of the Celestial Realm and the King Division experts was too big, too big. As expected, this Yi Shiwen is simply a dead end. Even if he doesn't resist stubbornly, he has no chance of winning against the most powerful people in the entire Ancient Barrens. Suddenly, the Jiuying Monster King reacted and cursed. Oh no, he's trying to escape. He actually used the power of my spear to escape. Damn it! Chapter 1690. Oh no, he's trying to escape. He actually borrowed the power of my spear to escape. Damn it! At this time, the Jiuying Demon King suddenly said furiously. At this time, everyone finally reacted. After Yi Shiwen was blasted away, he did not fall. On the contrary, he flew out at an even more astonishing speed. You can actually do this. Everyone was dumbfounded. Yi Shiwen actually took this opportunity to escape. Everyone thought that Yi Shiwen would stay and fight to the death with them. But the result was completely different. Yi Shiwen had no intention of fighting to the death with them at all. Where do you think you're going? The Jiuying Demon King, who felt that he was fooled, instantly moved and directly chased in the direction of Yi Shiwen. At this time, the special envoy of the ancient Phoenix realm, the North Mountain Clan chief, and the Sun King and the others almost all moved at this time. There were several dignified masters here, and they teamed up to deal with Yi Shiwen. If they let him escape, wouldn't it be a loss of face? More importantly, if they let him escape, they would probably face his revenge. With Yi Shiwen's amazing growth rate, there might be a chance for him to grow to the king rank in the future. Every master in the king rank could be said to be a supreme overlord. With such an overlord who coveted them at all times, they felt uneasy just thinking about it. In the void, Yi Shiwen only felt the burning pain from the wounds on his body. If it was an ordinary person, he would have already fainted from the pain. However, Yi Shiwen relied on the Mingxin ancient tree to forcibly stabilize his mind. Even so, he had to endure the heart-wrenching pain every moment. The demon wings behind him almost instantly opened, and he directly flew into the void. At the same time, he continuously operated the Phoenix regeneration technique to repair the injuries on his body. Was this the terrifying master of the Celestial Realm at the peak of the king rank? Just one attack, and he was completely injured, and this was under the situation where he had a mecha. If it was under normal circumstances, just that one attack was enough to completely kill him. Compared to this level of ancient overlord, there was still a huge gap in strength. He was very clear about this. Previously, when he fought with the incarnation of the Abyss Demon Lord, it was enough to see this. He only barely escaped from the hands of the Abyss Demon Lord by constantly escaping. Most of the reason was that the Abyss Demon Lord was afraid of the situation where there were many masters on this planet, so he did not continue to chase. This itself was enough to show how terrifying a master of the king rank was. However, he had no other choice. If he had wanted to escape from the start, it would have been impossible for him to escape from the joint attack of these experts. Only by letting their guard down and letting them think that he was already seriously injured could he possibly escape. Yi Shiwen had been planning this from the very beginning. It wasn't his style to surrender without putting up a fight. It wasn't something he would do. If they wanted his life, they would have to exchange it with their own. At this moment, a crazed look flashed across his face. The fact that the human race had chosen to hand him over was like a heavy blow to his heart. The only comforting thing was that the Yi family did not agree to this matter. From a moral point of view, Yi Shiwen could understand why they did this. As Yi Tianxiong had said before, no one could not be sacrificed for the sake of the Yi family and the human race. However, it was absolutely impossible for him to obediently surrender just because of this. He didn't know why the ancient Phoenix realm had paid such a high price just to kill him. However, he didn't have the time to think about these things at this moment. He had to think of a way to escape from this place as soon as possible. Boom! 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 At this moment, the overlords behind him all conjured giant nomological hands one after another, grabbing down from the void. From the front to the back, There was no room for Yi Shiwen to escape. If it was an ordinary person, he would have been killed by this kind of grabbing. However, Yi Shiwen was constantly moving in the void at this moment. His entire body seemed to be wrapped in a layer of electric sparks. Every time they seemed to be able to grab him, they would always make mistakes in Yi Shiwen's hands. At this moment, they were getting a little anxious. Everyone's speed was extremely fast. This was especially the case for those few overlords. They even tore through the void and dove in. By the time they came out again, they were already far away. They had gotten even closer to Lin Fan. Although Yi Shiwen's Devil Wings agility technique was extraordinary, but how could these overlords be taken lightly? They possessed a heritage that ordinary people couldn't even imagine. Even if their agility techniques were not as good as his Devil Wings, they were not inferior to him in any way. Moreover, their martial power was several times more profound than Yi Shiwen's. So the final result was that they were getting closer and closer. It seemed that Yi Shiwen could be caught at any time. Just like when he was being chased by the Abyss Demon Master previously, if he had not escaped to this planet, the Abyss Demon Master would have eventually caught up with him. There was almost no suspense. It's useless, Yi Shiwen. You don't have to struggle on your deathbed. Today, you will die without a doubt. At this moment, the North Mountain Clan chief said, "No one can save you." However, at this moment, a sudden change occurred. In the clouds, a huge demonic claw descended from the sky and instantly grabbed Yi Shiwen. In an instant, it tore the void apart. It was so fast that Yi Shiwen could not react at all. The moment this demonic hand grabbed Yi Shiwen, the colorful divine robe that Yi Shiwen had been wearing on the surface shattered on the spot, turning into colorful rays of light. On the spot, the array was immediately followed by the mecha. The mecha that protected him under the spear of the Joying Demon King was also completely shattered in an instant. Then it directly grabbed his physical body. Boom! With a loud noise, Yi Shiwen was slammed down like a cannonball, smashing into the sea of this planet, setting off a huge wave that was tens of thousands of meters high. Puff! Yi Shiwen spat out a mouthful of blood, and everything within 100 miles was dyed red with blood. His whole body smashed down, and the waves in all directions were smashed in an instant, forming a huge hole, all the way directly into the sea that was thousands of meters deep. Boom! With a huge roar, Yi Shiwen directly smashed out a huge trench on the entire seabed. Countless seabed magma spewed out, and the entire seabed shattered into a mass. After a long time, the huge space that was smashed out by Yi Shiwen was slowly submerged by the seawater, and the entire sea finally returned to calmness. But at this time, countless seawater rushed into the magma. Water and fire blended, and countless mists rose. Yi Shiwen's whole body floated above the magma. Although the temperature of the magma was very high for him, who could even swallow the Nanming leaf fire in one gulp, even if he was seriously injured, this kind of ordinary magma could not hurt him. His whole body seemed to fall apart. His whole chest was smashed by the big hole that was blasted by the Joying Demon King's spear. The flesh and blood of his whole body were also a mess. He was smashed by this demon claw on the spot and almost died. Even if he relied on the Mingxin ancient tree to barely maintain his consciousness, he also knew that he could not hold on for long. He could not even move a finger, and the bones of his whole body were smashed by the slap just now. Phoenix regeneration technique could not save him in a short time, and could only barely keep his life. At this time, under his thoughts, Yu Lian's figure finally appeared. Seeing Yi Shiwen like this, she was suddenly shocked, and quickly said, "Young master, are you okay? How did this happen?" She had been practicing in Tianyuan Mirror, and did not know the situation outside. "Open the Demon King's treasure house. Let's go." At this time, Yi Shiwen could only use the secret sound transmission, and use his thoughts to tell her that the bones of his whole body had been smashed into pieces, and he could not even speak. It was really terrifying. If it was not for the colorful robe and the mecha that blocked for him at the critical moment, just that claw was enough to completely kill him. But even so, the colorful robe and the mecha had been completely broken, and obviously could not be used anymore. He could not help but feel a little pity. Yu Lian began to constantly pinch the technique, and in the void, a magic began to condense, turning into a huge magic array. It was naturally not so easy to open the Demon King's treasure house. Otherwise, Yi Shiwen would have chosen to hide in the Demon King's treasure house from the beginning, because that was his territory. Taking advantage of this little time, Yi Shiwen's remaining divine thoughts swept out. He wanted to see who attacked and actually injured him. And when his divine thoughts swept out, he found that the entire planet had become a complete mess. The entire planet had been enveloped by an extremely powerful array, and the space gradually began to solidify. If he wanted to escape from here by tearing the space, it would only become more and more difficult. And above the rolling demonic clouds, a majestic figure stood between heaven and earth. Yi Shiwen's pupils suddenly shrank. This was the Abyss Demon Lord. He could not help but take a breath of cold air. So, the one who attacked him just now should not be someone else, but the Abyss Demon Lord, and it was not an incarnation, but the real body. No wonder it was so terrifying and almost killed him with one claw. He suddenly remembered the problem he had talked about with the family head before. If it was only the incarnation of the Abyss Demon Lord, then there was nothing to fear. If the real body came, it would definitely be a terrible disaster. And at this time, the North Mountain Clan Chief, Jiuying Demon King, and the others were all besieging the Abyss Demon Lord. All kinds of terrible attacks swept out, and the terrifying strength belonging to the King Grade was fully manifested. But in the face of these attacks, the Abyss Demon Lord did not care at all, as if it was scratching an itch. Suddenly, as if sensing Yi Shiwen's gaze, a big demonic hand instantly formed on the Abyss Demon Lord's body, and then grabbed towards Yi Shiwen in the deep sea. Chapter 1691. The speed of this devil's hand was extremely fast. It seemed as if it had blasted into the sea in an instant. In an instant, countless seawater was crushed. Even the space within thousands of square kilometers was shattered. An incomparably huge devil's claw clawed towards Yi Shiwen's direction. At this time, all the overlords also saw that the Abyss Demon Lord, who was completely indifferent to their attacks, actually attacked Yi Shiwen. At this time, especially those human overlords, their faces were as ugly as could be. Originally, among the words that they criticized Yi Shiwen, there was a very important point, and that was Yi Shiwen was simply a remnant of the demon race, and they wanted him to die to prove his loyalty. But now, looking at the appearance of the Abyss Demon Lord, it was clear that he wanted Yi Shiwen to die, and did not hold back at all. That grab just now, if it were them, they would definitely be dead. Now it seemed that perhaps Yi Shiwen was arrogant and unruly, unwilling to sacrifice for the overall situation of the human race, and even stirring up trouble everywhere, provoking these overlords to personally kill him. But to say that he was colluding with the demon race was simply their own imagination. But at this time, no one cared about this anymore. In the hands of the Abyss Demon Lord, Yi Shiwen would undoubtedly die. Splash! Wherever the big hand passed, the space was completely shattered, and the seawater was completely evaporated. At this level, an expert could destroy a region with just a punch or a kick. And at this time, when the demon hand was about to grab Yi Shiwen, at this time, Yu Lian finally prepared the magic array. At this time, a crack was torn in the void, and a large array that led to the Demon King's treasure house was torn. Young master, tell Lord Yemo. Yu Lian sent Yi Shiwen into the crack, but she did not have time to hide and was directly grabbed by the demon hand. Her smile was sad. Countless years had passed, and she still could not even say a word of admiration, and she was about to be annihilated? Bang! On the spot, she directly turned into a cloud of blood mist and exploded on the spot, and a trace of her original spirit was annihilated. Abyss Demon Lord, I will definitely tear your body into pieces. Yi Shiwen, who was in the crack, could only watch this scene and could not do anything at all. His angry divine thoughts shook the air and turned into a huge roar, which spread throughout the entire planet. He actually escaped? The Abyss Demon King frowned slightly. He naturally felt extremely regretful in his heart. Twice, after severely injuring Yi Shiwen twice, he actually failed to catch him and allowed him to escape. To him, it was undoubtedly a great humiliation. As for Yi Shiwen's words, he did not care at all. It was just a dog barking from afar. However, he quickly calmed himself down and turned to look at these overlords. His original target this time wasn't Yi Shiwen, but these overlords? Conquering the primordial era was his goal. Whether it was the human race or the other races, they were all obstacles in his way. If he could kill all the overlords gathered on this planet, he would definitely be able to greatly damage the vitality of all the races in the primordial era. It would clear away some obstacles for him to conquer the primordial era. You people actually want to join forces against the demon race. You must be tired of living. I originally wanted to let you live for a while longer, but it seems like that's not possible anymore. The Abyss Demon Lord looked at them coldly and said, Abyss Demon Lord, I've long heard of your famous name, but do you really think that we can't do anything to you? The Joeying Demon King looked at the Abyss Demon Lord coldly. Let me see how capable you are. At this moment, the Joeying Demon King grabbed a drop of blood essence that contained terrifying power from the space, and then swallowed it. Then, the aura on his body skyrocketed bit by bit, growing against the wind. In an instant, he became a giant that was hundreds of feet tall, and then turned into a monster with 9 heads in the void. It was like a monster snake with 9 heads, except that it had 4 strong limbs. The cry was like the cry of a baby. This was the real body of the Joeying Demon King. Joeying? Interesting, but it's not the primordial era anymore. I'd like to see how capable the Joeying tribe is. The Abyss Demon Lord saw the soaring aura of the Joeying Demon King, but he didn't care at all. The strength of our Joeying tribe is not something you can understand. Just now, I've already swallowed the blood essence of the old ancestor of our Joeying tribe, the Joeying Demon King, one of the 10 great demon kings in the past. Watch me fight with you now, and see how strong you are. The Joeying Demon King laughed loudly, and his 9 heads spat out poisonous flames. Waves of turbid currents interweaved in the void, forming an extremely dangerous water and fire net, and instantly enveloped the Abyss Demon Lord. Facing the Joeying Demon King's real body, the Abyss Demon Lord finally didn't look down on him like before. He clawed out, and in the void, rays of light of the law appeared. Boom! Both sides made a terrible collision. One side was filled with demonic flames, and the other side was merciless water and fire. The collision in the void was terrifying. Abyss Demon Lord, eat my sword. Immediately after, another terrifying pressure appeared in the sky, and a long sword appeared in the sky like a big sun. At this time, in the void, it seemed as if a noble king had suddenly appeared, and he stared at the void, as if he was conquering the world, holding a long sword to conquer everything. It was the authentic Sun King sword, and not the fake Sun King sword. It had a power that was far beyond the ordinary fake Sun King sword. Come on, when the Sun King of the human race was rampant in the world, I didn't see him. Now, I'd like to see how strong his descendants are. The Abyss Demon Lord sneered. Facing the current Sun King, who was holding the Sun King sword, he wasn't afraid at all, and he even had a look of excitement on his face. Die, demon! At this time, the special envoy of the ancient Phoenix realm also erupted and transformed into an incomparably huge fire phoenix on the spot. It was thousands of feet long, and it blotted out the sky. It spouted countless Nanmingly fire from its mouth, and a sea of fire interweaved in the void. It swept out and burned through the demon clouds in the sky. Countless demons were burned alive. Behind this fire phoenix, an even bigger fire phoenix's phantom took shape in the void. It was the phantom of the old ancestor of the phoenix race. In addition to them, the experts of various races also erupted one after another and revealed their tyrannical heritage. They had been ranked in the ancient times for so many years, and they certainly had their own remarkable heritage. For example, the current Sun King was able to contend against the Abyss Demon Lord by relying on the Sun King sword that had been left behind by the Sun King in the past. This was a powerful divine tool that had accompanied the Sun King in his conquest of the world. Even after countless years had passed, and even the Sun King had fallen in the past, it still maintained its formidable power. Insignificant skill, break for me! The Abyss Demon Lord shouted loudly, and countless demon yuan burst out of his body. After that, an incomplete map slowly rose up. It was the legendary yin-yang life and death diagram. In the past, Yi Shiwen had obtained a small part of the yin-yang life and death diagram. At this time, the power of yin and yang filled the sky. These attacks were all blocked by the yin-yang life and death diagram, and couldn't injure the Abyss Demon Lord at all. Moreover, these attacks were all transformed into the power of yin and yang, and were absorbed by the Abyss Demon Lord. As the saying goes, chaos gives birth to yin and yang. Apart from the power of chaos, the power of yin and yang was the highest level of power. These energies, whether they were of the 5 elements or other energies, were all transformed into the power of yin and yang by the Abyss Demon Lord. Unlike Yi Shiwen, who couldn't control the yin-yang life and death diagram, the Abyss Demon Lord had obtained the yin-yang life and death diagram for so many years. Even though the diagram was incomplete and the power of yin and yang wasn't balanced, it was enough for him to control some of the power of the yin-yang life and death diagram. He didn't need to be like Yi Shiwen, who couldn't control the yin-yang life and death diagram. On the contrary, he had to spend a considerable amount of energy to suppress the yin-yang life and death diagram. Beast, die for me! The Abyss Demon Lord took a step forward and instantly arrived in front of the ancient Phoenix Realm's special envoy. He directly punched. Bang! Innumerable principles of fist completely manifested at this moment and transformed into an earth-shattering fist energy. The virtual shadow behind the ancient Phoenix Realm's special envoy was smashed into pieces in an instant. Then, the fist energy bombarded the body of this huge fire phoenix. Bang! An incomparably huge explosion sound was heard, and this fire phoenix that was thousands of feet long fell to the ground. It directly created a huge crack that was so deep that one couldn't see the bottom. It couldn't be known that this crack was thousands of miles long, and the sea was overturned for a moment. It wasn't any better than Yi Shiwen's. The dreadful strength of the Abyss Demon Lord was completely revealed at this moment. Puff! This fire phoenix spurted out a mouthful of blood. This was the phoenix's blood essence. If it were to be sold in the outside world, then every ounce of it would fetch a priceless price. However, it seemed as if it were worthless garbage at this moment. There was a huge wound on his chest, and it looked extremely terrifying. He had crippled an overlord of the king rank with just one punch. The dreadfulness of the Abyss Demon Lord seemed as if a devil god had descended at this moment. However, the silhouettes of many powerful overlords flew over at this moment, and a tyrannical aura erupted. They didn't hold back at all at this moment. The Abyss Demon Lord had already sealed this space. Perhaps they would really die here if they didn't fight with all their might. Apart from the Abyssal Demon Lord, there were also many demons who charged into the planet. The entire Alliance planet had fallen into the Devil's claws for a moment, and had sunk into a bloody storm. On the other side, bang! Yi Shiwen's body hit the floor of the Demon Lord's main hall with a loud sound. He couldn't move at all, and he looked straight at the roof of the Demon Lord's main hall. Tears unknowingly flowed down from his eyes. Abyss Demon Lord, I'll make sure that you die without a burial place. Chapter 1692. Yi Shiwen's sudden appearance scared little Kuin Peng, who had swallowed countless pellets and was lying on the ground. At this time, seeing Yi Shiwen's appearance, even little Kuin Peng, who did not want to move, quickly got up. Although he was ignorant like a child, he was not ignorant. Moreover, there was a contract between him and Yi Shiwen. At this time, he quickly opened a restriction in the demon domain, and then burned all the pellets in it, turning them into a torrent of energy that poured into Yi Shiwen's body. For him, there was no concept of waste at all. He was completely frightened by Yi Shiwen's bloody appearance, as if he would die at any time. For him, The first person he saw when he opened his eyes was like his father. Yi Shiwen, who had been taking care of him, was like a child. At this time, how could he care so much? A torrent of energy flowed in Yi Shiwen's body. At this time, Yi Shiwen could only barely suppress the sadness and anger in his heart. He operated the Phoenix regeneration technique, guiding this torrent of energy to constantly repair the bones that had been broken into powder and the completely broken meridians, etc. His body had already been cultivated to the great accomplishment of the tyrant body. It was very difficult to cultivate the tyrant body. An average person simply couldn't injure Yi Shiwen, who had the tyrant body. However, it was much more difficult for Yi Shiwen to recover after he had been injured to such an extent than an ordinary person. Otherwise, ordinary injuries could be completely healed in a moment with the Phoenix regeneration technique. This kind of injury could be said to be the most serious injury Yi Shiwen had ever suffered. He almost died. If Yu Lian did not send him away at the last moment, he would definitely die in the hands of the Abyss Demon Lord. Beep! At this time, the Phoenix regeneration technique in his body directly turned into a phoenix, covering his whole body and burning. At this time, Yi Shiwen looked like a fire phoenix in nirvana. At this time, Kuan Prung, who had always been like a child, also became completely serious and guarded Yi Shiwen's side. Although there should be no danger in this demon lord's treasure house, he was not tired at this time. At this time, his gaze became fierce. His gaze would occasionally turn sharp. After swallowing pills for such a long time, this glutton had already stepped into the ranks of Heaven Realm experts. This improvement made Yi Shiwen green with envy and hate. Compared to this little foodie, the son of God, Yi Shukong, who was known to have no barriers to cultivation, was nothing. This was the true definition of having no barriers at all. As long as one ate, one could smoothly break through. Time passed just like that. In the blink of an eye, 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. Yi Shiwen was lying motionless, but his aura was rising little by little with the passage of time. Bit by bit, he recovered to his peak. Ah! A clear whistling sound shook the entire hall of the Devil Monarch's treasure house. Yi Shiwen, who had been trapped in the Phoenix's virtual shadow all this time, finally rose all of a sudden. At this moment, divine light danced around his body, making him look like a god who had been reborn. Yi Shiwen clenched his fists and looked at his body. He had actually cultivated the tyrant body to the realm of great accomplishment, great perfection. Originally, ever since he cultivated to the 10th level, there was almost no improvement in the tyrant body. If he wanted to improve, he could only continuously destroy and then rebuild it. But with the level of Yi Shiwen's tyrant body, at most, he could blast a big hole in him, like the Jiuying Demon King. It was only this time that he was almost killed by the Abyss Demon Lord with a claw. It could really be said to be a blessing in disguise. All of a sudden, he had cultivated the 10th level to the realm of great perfection. At this time, although Yi Shiwen's strength could not be said to be very strong, it was already very perfect, comparable to the physical body of a god. This was the true power of the 10th level of the tyrant body. These were all the tyrant body 10th level that Yi Shiwen had deduced. Yi Shiwen had not seen what the original version looked like, but he also believed that even if the original tyrant body was different from this, it was enough to compete with the original version. And most importantly, this heavy injury was equivalent to his meridians, flesh, and bones were all destroyed, and he had obtained a new life. The Phoenix clan had the Nirvana law. After every Nirvana, their strength would rise to a new level. Therefore, the Phoenix clan would often undergo Nirvana. At this time, Yi Shiwen seemed to have undergone Nirvana. His body had been reconstructed, and he had completely opened the passage to the 9th heavenly layer of celestial being realm. In other words, the originally incomparably sturdy 9th heaven of celestial being realm had been completely opened up at this time. As long as he cultivated patiently, breaking into the 9th heaven of celestial being realm was only a matter of time. Not enough, not enough. Even if I enter the 9th level of heaven realm, I am still far from the Abyss Demon Lord. Yi Shiwen clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. This time, Yu Lian had died at the hands of the Abyss Devil Lord in order to save him. He didn't even know how he would face Emo after he woke up. This time, he was the one who brought Yu Lien to participate in the alliance meeting, but the result was like this. In fact, even if he entered the 9th level of Heaven Realm, there was still a big gap between him and the many overlords of the king rank. Not to mention the Abyss Demon Lord who could easily defeat these overlords. The gap between him and the current him was simply like the difference between heaven and earth. But now, there was no way, because he was facing a more urgent problem. The demon seed that had been suppressed in his body, because of the heavy injury this time, was completely uncontrollably expanding, and during this period of time, a large part of the medicinal power absorbed by Yi Shiwen's treatment was absorbed by this demon seed. During this period of time, it had unknowingly grown to a very dangerous level, and it could even be said that Yi Shiwen was completely unable to control it. In the past, he could still rely on Tianyuan Mirror, ancient god scripture, and so on to suppress it, but now the fully grown demon seed had almost uncontrollably grown, and it seemed to be developing to the point of maturity. And the closer it was to the point of maturity, it also meant that Yi Shiwen was also closer to the point of death at the same time. In the end, am I still going to die? Yi Shiwen couldn't help but smile a little bitterly. All these years, because of the demon seed in his body, there was not a day that he was not on tenterhooks, and there was not a day that he was not careful, and now the day had finally arrived. Suddenly, his state of mind was enlightened. At this time, it was useless to worry at this time. It was better to think about how to arrange things after his death. Yes, at this time, although Yi Shiwen had already seen through it, he also understood that this time he was afraid that he really couldn't escape from the disaster. And when the demon seed fully matured, the moment it exploded, it would be the moment of his death. Thinking of this, he didn't want to waste any more time, and immediately opened a restriction. Countless medicinal torrents turned into a stream of energy and directly poured into Yi Shiwen's body, and his momentum also rose little by little. Boom! 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 Almost every once in a while, one could feel his aura rise by a notch, and then explode. It turned into circles of energy torrents that swept out, and a lot of energy was absorbed by Yi Shiwen, but even more energy was completely wasted, surging out from his pores, and then turned into shock waves that swept out. But at this time, Yi Shiwen didn't care about that anymore. He was going to die anyway. What was the point of caring about that? At this time, Kunping at the side at this time kept shouting, as if it was saying that Yi Shiwen was a wastrel, and then in one breath, directly swallowed all the energy overflowing from Yi Shiwen's body. Although it was still a small body, its realm had already entered the celestial realm initial stage, and it already had some domineering aura like Kunping swallowing the world. In one breath, it swallowed all the energy overflowing from Yi Shiwen's body, and not a single bit was wasted. His little belly kept moving up and down, and the moment the energy was absorbed by him, it was immediately digested by him, without stopping for even a second. This Kunping's ability to absorb the world was also very tyrannical and terrifying. In the Demon Lord main hall, Yi Shiwen and the little Kunping, the main and pet pair, kept absorbing the medicinal pills and kept overflowing energy, while the other kept absorbing energy, and their momentum kept rising. In the blink of an eye, a whole 10 years had passed since Yi Shiwen escaped into the Demon Lord main hall. Boom! Suddenly, an extremely tyrannical power instantly exploded from Yi Shiwen's body, and an explosive power flowed through his body. 9th heaven of celestial realm. I finally stepped in. Yi Shiwen slowly opened his eyes. Stepping into the 9th heaven of celestial realm, his entire strength had an earth-shattering improvement, and his combat power could even destroy a celestial realm late-stage existence. The increase in realm also bought some time for him to suppress the demon seed and delayed the demon seed's maturity. Although he knew that this was like drinking poison to quench thirst, there was no other way. At this time, he looked at the little Kunping beside him. It had actually reached the peak of the celestial realm initial stage and was about to step into the celestial realm intermediate stage. He couldn't help but not know whether to laugh or cry. He had cultivated a few hundred years earlier than the Kunping, but in the end, this little glutton had even stepped into the celestial realm earlier than him, and he suddenly had a feeling of embarrassment. Beep, beep. Seeing that Yi Shiwen had woken up, the little Kunping cried out excitedly, roughly talking about how hard he had worked during this period of time and asking for praise. Okay, I got it. Yi Shiwen smiled dotingly, but then his eyes became sharp. It's been 10 years. It's time to go out and take a look. Chapter 1693. To Yi Shiwen, who had been recovering and breaking through, 10 years of time was just the blink of an eye. He had no concept of time. It felt like a long time had passed, but it also felt like it hadn't passed at all. However, to the outside world, it was like a raging storm. The Abyss Demon Lord breaking into the Alliance planet and causing the various races to suffer heavy losses was already news from 10 years ago. However, the effects it caused were still present even now. Originally, the various races were still watching and didn't act against the demon race. Or rather, they were waiting for the human race and the demon race to both suffer heavy losses so that they could reap the benefits. However, 10 years ago, the battle on the Alliance planet directly caused the entire planet to explode, turning it into pieces in the universe. Countless people had died in that battle. The old ancestors of the big rogue cultivator forces had lost their lives. They were too many to count. Their mourning had spread everywhere. Not to mention them, even the old ancestors of the king and marquis families had suffered great casualties. The special envoy of the ancient Phoenix world had been severely injured. His martial arts had been crippled, and he had reverted to his original form. He had been taken back by the ancient Phoenix world. It was said that he hadn't recovered until now. The Nine-Infant Monster King was heavily injured in that battle. After he returned to the Nine-Infant race, he faced a rebellion that nearly overturned the entire race. Apart from that, all the clans suffered great losses. Among them, the human clan, who was the invisible host, suffered the most. Among them, more than 5 king-ranked experts had died, and they were all killed by the Abyss Demon Lord. Apart from that, more than 10 marquises were severely injured, including the head of the Yi clan, Yi Tianxiong. He was also seriously injured in that battle and almost died. The losses of the human race were huge. However, there were benefits too. After the various races lost a few peak, celestial realm, and king-grade experts, the various races finally realized how terrifying the Abyss Demon Lord was. The various races finally realized how terrifying the Abyssal Demon Lord was. If this situation continued, it was only a matter of time before the demon race broke through the human race's defensive line. Once the human race was broken through, the demon race, who had a foothold in the desolate era, would quickly turn countless humans into human demons. At that time, with the human race as their foothold, they would sweep the world. In the last war with the demon clan did the same thing. In the hands of the human clan, the huge population of the human clan was just a huge population. Most of the human clan was too weak to even trust a chicken. However, once they fell into the hands of the devil race, even if the devil race didn't slaughter the human race, as long as they turned these human race into human demons, it would be a terrifying number. Just think about it, the human race's population was 10 times or even dozens of times that of the other races. If all of them were to transform into human demons, even if their level wouldn't be too high, it would still be a very frightening thing. It wouldn't be a lie to say that they could conquer the entire ancient Barrens continent. Originally, the remnants of the demon race wouldn't be able to do much. The various races had been killing and suppressing the remnants of the demon race all year round. Originally, they weren't able to do much. There were a few king-grade experts who didn't dare to show themselves. Otherwise, they would be attacked by the various races of the continent. However, at this time, with the terrifying existence of the Abyss Devil Lord, it would be difficult for the human clan to resist. Even if they had a few ancestral artifacts, they wouldn't be able to do much. Hence, due to various reasons, the various races that were watching from the sidelines joined the battle. Many top-notch experts went to the royal court of the human clan to jointly attack the demon race. The remaining experts also launched attacks on the demon race's spatial rift that they were guarding, forcing them to summon more experts back, making it impossible for them to attack the royal court of the human clan. The various races that were originally fighting against each other had no choice but to unite because of the existence of the Abyss Devil Lord. It was rare for them to work together as one. Compared to 10 years ago, the entire situation had changed drastically. In comparison, the situation that the human clan was facing seemed to have improved greatly. With the participation of the various races, the pressure on the human clan was greatly reduced. With the various races holding back a large number of the demon race's forces, the human clan could free up more time to deal with the Abyss Devil Lord outside the royal court. Just delaying the Abyssal Demon Lord was already an extremely difficult task for them. Most importantly, facing the elusive Abyss Devil Lord, they were completely on the defensive. It could even be said that they were running for their lives. However, with the Abyss Devil Lord's high-profile attack, the flames of war were burning everywhere. Even the demon-worshipping religion was attacking everywhere. Originally, the existence of the demon-worshipping religion was just a small matter to the ancient Barrens continent. However, now that the various major forces didn't have the time to deal with it, it had become a huge problem. Because of this, the various major forces had no choice but to send a large number of members and disciples to eradicate the demon-worshipping religion. Boundary Gate. Back then, I entered from here. Now, sigh. Standing at the first checkpoint to enter the ancient Barrens continent, Yishuan looked at the younger generations that were continuously coming from various small worlds to the ancient Barrens continent. It was just like when Yishuan first arrived. He couldn't help but feel emotional. In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed in the blink of an eye, as if it was just a moment. Back then, he came to the ancient Barrens with great ambitions. Now, he had to leave dejectedly. He was reluctant, but there was no other way. He concealed his aura. The surrounding warriors were only in the Great Sage realm. At most, they were in the Transcendent realm. None of them could discover his traces. He had already entered the Celestial realm. He had integrated with the heaven and earth. Every breath he took was like the entire sky was breathing, flowing naturally. These people going in and out of the ancient Barrens continent did not expect that there would be a heaven realm master watching them at this time. For them, a master of that level was already a legend, a mythical existence. It was not an existence that they could come into contact with at all. With the passage of time, Yishuan increasingly discovered that the growth rate of the devil seed inside his body had also increased exponentially. He could no longer suppress the growth of the devil's seed by relying on his martial power alone. Even if he had stepped into the 9th level of the celestial realm and his martial power had advanced by leaps and bounds, but he could only suppress the devil seed for a few more years. In this case, he knew that he was almost certainly going to die. The day the demon seed broke out would be the day of his death. Now, the only thing he was worried about was his family. The Yi family had many masters, so it was not his turn to worry. He knew that he did not have much time left. At this time, Yishuan only wanted to return to the true martial domain to see his parents one last time. Everything in his previous life had already disappeared like a dream. Hundreds of years had passed, and he had long regarded himself as a native of this world. All kinds of things in his previous life had gradually begun to fade away. Even if he remembered it, it would be useless. Hundreds of years had passed, and his parents of his previous life had already turned into a cup of soil. Therefore, he had long regarded his parents in the true martial domain as his closest relatives. Now, he would go back to see them for the last time and accompany them for the last time. At this time, he no longer wanted to care about the righteousness of the race or the battle between the ancient barons and the devil race. These things were not things that he could manage. From here onwards, he wanted to return to the true martial domain through the world passage. He deeply sighed. He was about to directly come out of the closed-door training when he suddenly saw countless demon energies pervading the sky. Then, from the direction of the distant true martial domain's passage, a huge crack was torn open, and a shocking demon shadow suddenly jumped out of it. Yishuan's heart suddenly tightened. Abyss Devil Lord! He immediately recognized this aura, the Abyss Devil Lord. Yes, he would never forget the aura of the Abyss Devil Lord until his death. If not for the Abyss Devil Lord, Yu Lian would not have died. The human warriors in the lower city gate were in a commotion. They did not know what was going on. They only saw countless demon energies pervading the air. But how powerful was Yi Shiwen's eyesight? He could see at a glance that the Abyss Devil Lord was actually injured. He saw that on his majestic body, there was a huge hole that completely penetrated his entire abdomen, as if a big cannon had blasted a big hole. His whole body also seemed to be in a fierce conflict with a terrible opponent, and everywhere was badly mutilated. How is this possible? Yi Shiwen was extremely shocked. What kind of tyrannical existence was the Abyss Devil Lord? He almost killed Yi Shiwen, who was wearing a mecha with one palm. This kind of strength was many times more than Yi Shiwen's peak fighting strength. How could he be injured? What kind of person could injure him like this? Yi Shiwen could feel that the Abyss Devil Lord was unprecedentedly weak. Although it was still terrible, it was enough to make Yi Shiwen extremely shocked. What kind of terrible thing did he encounter? Why did he come out of the true martial domain's passageway? Yi Shiwen was instantly shocked. Countless thoughts went through his mind at once. And just when he was still shocked, he saw the Abyss Devil Lord flying over from the void, and then directly grabbing down. Everyone in the entire city gate was turned into a blood mist that filled the sky, and then formed a torrent of blood mist that was directly sucked into his mouth. Instantly, his whole body was a little better, and his wounds were visibly smaller. He kept operating the demonic power, continuously digesting the blood essence of these people, and then used it to treat his own injuries. After a short pause, he immediately flew into the ancient desolation. Boom! With a loud rumble, a huge foot came down from the sky, and all the living beings in the sea within a radius of 10,000 miles were annihilated. They were all crushed to death, and then turned into a mass of blood essence, which was directly absorbed by the Abyss Devil Lord. The Abyss Devil Lord's massacre was not over yet. He went all the way into the depths of the ancient desolation, and everywhere he went, the human race, the sea race, and the alliance of the 100 races were all slaughtered, and no one was spared. Only ruins were left. Chapter 1694. This, Yi Shiwen, who had dodged a calamity, stared blankly at the place that the Abyss Demon Lord had ravaged. It was a land of death, like hell on earth. There were no living beings at all. It was a land of death, dead silence, with no living beings left, not to mention the existence of any ghosts or grievances, as even the essence, blood, and flesh had all been sucked clean by the Abyss Demon Lord. Yi Shiwen was dumbfounded at the sight of this dreadful, destructive power. Along the way, there were many experts who wanted to stop the Abyss Demon Lord, but none of them were his match, and all of them were killed. "How dare you, demon?" Suddenly, a powerful elite leaped out from one of the major races of the 100 Races Alliance. It was a celestial realm pinnacle elite, but the Abyss Demon Lord didn't even look at him, directly grabbing this celestial realm expert and stuffing him into his mouth, biting him to death and swallowing him. Then, with another swipe of his claw, everyone within a radius of 10,000 li was turned into a ball of essence blood, which was devoured by him. After swallowing so many experts along the way, his complexion finally looked a little better. He was no longer sickly, and the wounds on his body were also recovering at a shocking rate. In the blink of an eye, his figure disappeared into the depths of the desolate era. Even Yi Shiwen couldn't track where the Abyss Demon Lord went. "Damn it! What is going on with this Abyss Demon Lord?" Yi Shiwen said in shock. How badly was he injured for him to need to be harvested like this? One must know that the most precious treasures in the world weren't treasures that were thousands or tens of thousands of years old, but these living beings. These living beings were born with souls bestowed by the heavens, and they had life energy. They were the most precious things in the world, so there were many evil and demonic techniques that involved absorbing the essence blood of these living beings to strengthen oneself. Just like how Yi Shiwen often used the Tianyuan mirror to turn the flesh and blood of the demon race into essence chi for him to absorb, it was the same principle in essence. However, the Abyssal Demon Master's appearance clearly indicated that he had been seriously injured and had no choice but to act like this. It was just that his method of harvesting was far more ruthless than Yi Shiwen's, exterminating all living beings within 10,000 li, turning them all into essence energy to nourish himself. However, what made Yi Shiwen even more shocked was that the Abyss Devil Lord had unexpectedly been injured. One must know that the Abyss Devil Lord was someone who could barely force him to attack, even if dozens of king-ranked experts joined hands. So, what kind of person could actually injure him to such an extent that he had no choice but to flee back to the ancient barrens in a sorry state? It would have been fine if he didn't think about it, but if he really thought about it, it would be extremely terrifying. The Abyss Demon Lord had survived the Great War between the demon race and the Desolate Era, and it was said that his cultivation realm had advanced by leaps and bounds. Who else could injure him to this extent? More importantly, the Abyss Demon Lord had returned to the ancient barrens from the true martial domain. Yi Shiwen's heart instantly tightened, and he immediately rushed towards the true martial domain's passageway. With the martial Dao standards of the ancient barrens continent, the Abyss Demon Lord could probably destroy the entire world with a single palm strike. Looking at the Abyss Demon Lord's injuries, if he chose to pluck the true martial domain, then the true martial domain would be finished. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen didn't have the mood to continue caring about the Abyss Demon Lord. Anyway, there would naturally be someone to deal with the Abyss Demon Lord. Swish! His figure directly tore through the vast sky, and when he appeared again, he was already at the side of the passageway entrance of the true martial domain. This entrance was very hidden, but for him who had come here once, it wasn't a problem at all. He directly found the entrance and rushed in. When he once again passed through the entire passageway and arrived at the true martial domain, it was already 10 days later. Passing through the long spatial passageway was still a very long thing for him, and it was impossible for him to reach it directly. A familiar smell entered his nose. He couldn't help but take a deep breath. He closed his eyes and felt relaxed all over his body. The spirit energy of the true martial world was extremely thin compared to that of the barren ancient world. However, this place was where his roots were. This was where his true foundation lay. His divine will instantly swept out, and suddenly, he discovered that there was a huge battlefield not far away. On the battlefield, it could be said to be a field of corpses. Countless experts' corpses lay on the battlefield. All kinds of flags, various chariots, tools, all piled up on the battlefield like garbage. His pupils suddenly shrank, and that was because he found that most of the people on this huge battlefield were actually Bai Majiao's disciples. Although they had restored their human forms, Yi Shiwen believed that he would never mistake the Bai Majiao's aura on their bodies. On the other side, there were disciples of various sects, and the majority of them were true Martial University's disciples. It seemed as if they had formed an alliance to fight against Bai Majiao. How is this possible? Yi Shiwen felt a bit strange. Before he left, he had fought for True Martial University for decades, and conquered all the major forces in the True Martial domain, and returned to the banner of True Martial University. It could be said that True Martial University was the biggest force in the True Martial domain. Although there were many other small sects and forces, they were all subordinate to True Martial University. It was impossible to have a force like Xian Yuan Palace Hall, which was on an equal footing with True Martial University. And Bai Majiao was the focus of the attack. Whether it was in the True Martial domain or in the Ancient Barrens, Bai Majiao was the vanguard of the Devil Race's invasion. It could be said that they were the spies of the human race. And True Martial domain was always facing the threat of the Devil Race. In order to reduce this threat, Yi Shiwen also specifically wiped out Bai Majiao before he left. Although hundreds of years had passed, Bai Majiao's power couldn't recover so quickly, right? No matter how he looked at it, it would take hundreds or thousands of years to cultivate a new generation of experts, even in the True Martial domain. This was the same. In just a short period of hundreds of years, Bai Majiao had recovered to the point where it could compete with True Martial University. No matter how he looked at it, this was simply not right. Yi Shiwen became a little anxious as he thought of this. In addition, the Abyss Devil Lord had come out of the True Martial domain. This had intensified his worry. Yi Shiwen's divine sense instantly swept out. The entire battlefield was effortlessly shrouded by his divine sense. It could be said that the battlefield was in chaos. Countless disciples of true martial university and by Magiao had died tragically in this battlefield. Their resentment had turned into malicious ghosts, blotting out the sky and forming a battlefield that blotted out the sun. Yi Shiwen was about to purify this battlefield. Suddenly, his gaze swept to one end of the battlefield. Several experts were trapped in a dangerous place. Countless ghosts were constantly attacking this dangerous valley outside. This was a group of 3 men and 2 women. The 5 of them had practiced a matrix technique to block the entrance of the valley. So, these ghosts couldn't rush in. However, even so, it was very strenuous for them. These ghosts weren't afraid of death. Moreover, they were being manipulated. So, they were rushing towards them at this time. Damn, why are there so many of them? They are endless. At this time, among the 3 men, one of them was a sturdy man who looked like an iron tower. He seemed to be a young warrior in his late 20s. He roared and punched out with a powerful force, repelling the ghosts that were attacking them. However, it was useless. No matter how many ghosts he repelled, he couldn't escape from the siege of these ghosts because there were too many of them. Yi Fengyan, it's all your fault. You said that you wanted to come to this ancient battlefield. Now, we're going to die here. At this time, among the 3 men, a young man in his mid-20s couldn't help but complain aloud. Don't complain about my brother. Moreover, we have consulted everyone's opinions before entering the battlefield. We didn't force you. Why didn't you say anything when you had harvests? Now that we are in danger, you want to blame everything on my brother? No way. Among the 2 women, a girl who looked about 15 or 16 years old said with dissatisfaction. She was wearing a light yellow gown. At this time, it was already stained with blood. She was also very tired from fighting until now. Shueli, I didn't mean that. The young man in his mid-20s hurriedly waved his hand and said. It seemed that he cared about the opinion of the girl. Forget it, don't say anything. Finally, the young man in his early 20s couldn't help but say, rest assured, even if I die today, I won't let you die here. The current situation is obviously that someone is manipulating these ghosts from behind. And I think that only the devil people of Bai Magiao can mobilize these ghosts. At this time, I am not moving because I want to wait for him to come out. Otherwise, even if we forcibly break out of the encirclement, I am afraid that the result will not be good. Yi Fengyan is right. Even if we all die here today, it can be regarded as a worthy death. At this time, one of the 2 remaining girls, a green-clothed girl in her 20s, couldn't help but speak at this time. Her pretty face was also full of exhaustion. She didn't know how long this battle had been going on. She had already begun to feel a little exhausted, but there wasn't the slightest trace of fear on her face. I didn't say anything, the young man in his mid-20s said with dissatisfaction. At this moment, a series of strange laughter could be heard from the void. Jie, I didn't expect that this old ancestor would meet a few little bastards of true martial university here. You are just a trivial sage realm, and you dare to run around. Didn't your elders teach you not to run around? Do you really think that this is the time when your true martial university rules the world? Chapter 1695. I didn't expect to meet a few true martial school brats here. A mere sage realm dares to run around. Didn't your elders teach you not to run around? Do you really think that this is still the time for your true martial school to rule the world? Accompanied by this gloomy and hoarse voice, a demon shadow appeared in the void. It was a skinny figure hidden in a cloak. His face couldn't be seen, but 2 big blood-red eyes were staring at them ferociously. Demon, you deserve to die. Everyone has the right to punish you. At this time, the young man named Yi Fengyan couldn't help but say while gritting his teeth. Ah, demon? As the saying goes, life is full of ups and downs. In the past, your true martial school was invincible in the world. But what about now? Under the army of our demon-worshipping religion, you are constantly retreating. Now, many sects in the world have joined our demon-worshipping religion. We are the real trend at this time. You are the pitiful minions who are hindering the trend. The skinny figure said while laughing wildly. You true martial university's remnants will be the devils when we unify the world. Demon, don't talk nonsense. Come on if you have the ability. At this time, the tower-like young man said with dissatisfaction. His voice was muffled like a big can. He must be injured. Otherwise, he would have made a move long ago. There is no need to command these ghosts without will to attack. At this time, the young man in his mid-20s seemed to have noticed this at a glance. That's right, but as long as I devour all of you, this old man's injuries will get better. Do you know who left this old man's injuries? It's your good schoolmaster, Huang Wuji. Humph. Now that I am injured by your true martial school, I will repay with the blood of your true martial school's people. The skinny demon shadow sneered. You don't have to think about escaping. Even if you were seriously injured, you can't be my opponent. Those below the transcendent realm are ants. Even a great sage is like this, let alone you mere sage realm. You can enter the sage realm at such a young age. You can be regarded as the geniuses in the true martial school. Unfortunately, I like killing geniuses the most, especially geniuses like you. Tiske. It's been a long time since I tasted the blood of such a genius. As the skinny figure spoke, he even put his finger in his mouth and licked it, as if he was reminiscing the feeling. So disgusting. Yi Shuili couldn't help but look at the skinny figure in disgust. Disgusting? It doesn't matter. TSK. Little girl, you are very pretty. I can't bear to eat you. How about this? You might as well become my furnace. This way, you can live longer, the specter said with a sneer. Go to hell. Even if I die, I won't be your furnace. Yi Shuili said with a frown. That's not up to you. At this moment, the demonic figure suddenly moved. It tore through the void, leaving a series of afterimages. When it appeared again, it was already in front of Yi Shuili. A skinny hand stretched out from its robe and directly grabbed at Yi Shuili. At this moment, Yi Fengyun finally moved. She shouted and said, Old man, I've been waiting for this moment. Suddenly, a gourd hung from Yi Fengyun's waist, and a powerful strand of sword chi surged into the sky, piercing through the clouds. This strand of sword chi even tore open a huge hole in the dark clouds of the battlefield that originally blotted out the sky. Then, this sword aura spurted out from the gourd and instantly slashed down towards the specter. Bang! The sword aura tore the entire space into pieces. When it was about to hit the specter, a strange laughter came from behind him. The specter that was about to be slashed by the sword aura suddenly disappeared. It disappeared into thin air and directly appeared behind him. Boom! The sword aura directly swept out and killed countless ghosts along the way. It directly left a huge crack on the ground that was 10 meters deep, 10 meters wide, and extended for an unknown number of meters. It showed how terrifying this sword aura was. TSK. I can see that you have a trump card. You are actually so calm in the encirclement of these ghosts. Do you think that I will not have any defense at all? Accompanied by the strange laughter, a stream of devil chi directly condensed behind Yi Fengyun, condensing into a demonic figure. It was the old devil just now. Bang! This demonic figure directly stretched out a skinny devil claw and slashed at Yi Fengyun's body. Yi Fengyun's entire back was clawed into pieces, and several bones were also broken. His internal organs were shattered and almost directly crushed into powder. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his whole body was like a cannonball. He fell head first into the ground and fiercely blasted out a big hole. Everyone looked at this old man in shock. They were extremely shocked. They had carefully prepared for so long, thinking that they could lure this old devil out and then kill him. Who knew that he had already seen through their plan long ago, but he just pretended not to know. After luring them out of their sword aura, he suddenly killed them. They had never seen such a deep, murderous intention before. They thought that their little tricks were useless in front of this old devil, because the other party was more treacherous and shrewd than them. At this time, they knew that there was always someone better than them. Some people were indeed not as talented as them, but they were cunning. They were not a match for the old devil in terms of strength, and their schemes were also seen through. Are we really going to die here? Thinking of this, these people suddenly fell into despair. Are we really going to die here? Before they came here, they had never thought that this would be the result. Even they had already anticipated that there might be a certain degree of danger. After all, it was unknown how many experts of the true Martial University Alliance and by Majiao Coalition had died in this ancient battlefield. It could be said that the resentment here was shocking. It had formed a layer of resentment clouds that had not dissipated until now. In this kind of place, even if the journey time was not as long as that of the battlefield which had been formed for thousands of years, it was not less terrible. In addition, some experts of Bai Majiao were stirring up trouble here. It was impossible to say that it was not dangerous. However, they still came here. They were also famous genius disciples in the university. At this time, they naturally would not be afraid because of these rumors. Everything was going smoothly in the beginning. Who knew that they would suddenly be attacked by these ghosts? Although these ghosts were transformed from the experts of the true Martial University Alliance and by Majiao Coalition in the past, most of them did not have spiritual wisdom. As long as they did not break into their territory, they would not have the slightest feeling at all. They quickly realized that they might have been ambushed by the experts of Bai Majiao. Therefore, they set up this trap in order to lure out the demons of Bai Majiao and capture them in one fell swoop. As a result, they were lured out, but no matter how they looked at it, it seemed that they would be captured in one fell swoop. In particular, this sword chi made their mood fall to the bottom of the valley. This was their last hope and their biggest reliance. Now it was gone. Everyone suddenly fell into despair. That sword chi, could it be the sword chi that was transformed from the true martial stone sword, the treasure of the true martial university? It seems like your superiors think highly of you. They actually gave you a strand of sword chi from the true martial stone sword. It seems like they want you to save your lives at the most crucial moment. Unfortunately, they have already let you go. This time, I want to see what other tricks you have up your sleeves. The demonic shadow sneered. Just now, it was this sword chi that made him shudder. He was unable to concentrate at all. Now that the sword chi had been released, he felt like he had let out a sigh of relief. Old man, if you want to kill us, just kill us. Don't talk nonsense. At this time, Yi Fengyun snorted coldly. She held the long sword in her hand and stared coldly at the specter. It's impossible for us to surrender without putting up a fight. It's a pity. I originally wanted you to become my demon slaves and serve me from now on. In the end, you don't know what's good for you. Don't blame me then. At this time, the specter laughed strangely and was about to attack. Explode. Suddenly, an extremely cold voice resounded from the void. Then, right before everyone's eyes, the demonic shadow's body swelled up like an uncontrollable balloon, and then it exploded all of a sudden. Boom! With a loud bang, the demonic shadow turned into a bloody mist that filled the sky. Not even a speck of it was left. It didn't even have time to react. Even at death's door, it still maintained that joyful and hideous expression. Even at death's door, it probably didn't think that it would be ambushed and killed in such a situation. However, he didn't know that even if he were to face off, he wouldn't be able to fight against that person. No matter if it was a sneak attack or a direct attack, there was no difference. Everyone seemed to be dumbfounded. They stared blankly at the demon figure that had turned into a blood mist in the void. No one really saw what this person looked like. It was enough to show the gap between them and this demon. However, this demon that had most likely ascended to the transcendent realm was actually blasted into pieces by someone's roar. What kind of horrifying strength is this? Who is this? Chapter 1696. May I know which senior has helped us? I am Yi Fengyun of True Martial University. Thank you for your help. Yi Fengyun stepped forward and said while cupping his hands. He then glanced at the surroundings. Those ghosts didn't continue to surround him after the demon shadow exploded on the spot. Instead, they scattered in all directions. Thank you, Senior. Thank you, Senior. Thank you, Senior. Under Yi Fengyun's lead, everyone awoke from their shock, and then they hurriedly expressed their gratitude for fear of infuriating this senior who had come out of nowhere. Then a figure descended from the sky. It was a young man in his 20s. Has the true martial school fallen to this point? Yishuan glanced at everyone and said. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. They didn't know what to say because they couldn't figure out what this senior was thinking. Although this senior looked very young, they weren't shallow people who judged people based on their appearance, even though they were inexperienced. Yishuan sighed. Life moves quickly. Has the true Martial University fallen to such a state in just 100 years? Are all of you disciples of true Martial University? Yishuan glanced at everyone and said, Yes. Several people looked at each other and said, Junior is Yi Fengyun of True Martial University. Junior is Yi Shuili of True Martial University. Junior is Wen Haoshuan of True Martial University. This was the young man in his 20s. Junior is Dong Min, he of True Martial University. This was the tall young man in his 20s. Junior is Rong Hanxiao of True Martial University. This was the young woman. Greetings, senior. Several people greeted. They didn't know the temperament of this senior. However, it seemed that he should be their friend and not their enemy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have helped them to get rid of that old ghost. Yishuan swept a glance at these youngsters. All of them looked very young. They seemed to be in their 50s or 60s at the most. However, they had already entered the sage realm one after another. They could be considered as good talents in the true martial world's environment. Yishuan had reached the same level when he was in his 50s or 60s. However, he had already been regarded as a rare genius in the world at that time. His progress had been so fast that no one in the same generation could match him. However, these people were already at the same level as Yishuan in the past. It was conceivable that the true Martial University had made great progress in recent years. Under the leadership of senior brother Huang Wuji, there was a lot of progress. When Yishuan had just entered the true martial school was only one of the overlords in the true martial domain. It was only one of the many giants in the true martial school. Although he could already enjoy a lot of resources, when he left, true martial school had already unified the world and enjoyed the resources of the entire world. The gap between them was completely unreasonable. With more resources, all kinds of geniuses would naturally burst forth. In the past, someone like Yishuan could be regarded as a rare monstrous genius in the true martial school. However, such monstrous geniuses were lined up in rows now. It was just like if the Yi family unified the ancient Barons continent one day, then the geniuses in the clan would be the best in the world. In essence, many of these people living in the true martial domain had amazing aptitudes. They weren't any worse than the people in the ancient Barons continent. It was just that they lacked the huge amount of resources in the ancient Barons continent. Just like his senior brother Huang Wuji, who was an overlord in the true martial domain. If he was in the ancient Barons continent, he would also become a powerful overlord. The only thing he lacked was resources. Why did you guys come to this place? Didn't your teachers tell you? Most of the ghosts here are great sages and transcendent realm experts. Aren't you guys just seeking death by staying here? Asked Yishuan. In this place, the weakest ghosts were the corpses of great sages. These people were indeed young geniuses, and they all had trump cards. However, it was still a bit too much for them to come here. If he didn't make a move just now, all of them would have been annihilated. Ugh! They looked at each other. Then, Dongmin took a step forward, cupped his hands, and said, Actually, we were forced to come here this time. We had no choice but to come here. We were forced to do so. You guys should be considered as rare seedlings in the true martial school. If we don't protect such geniuses, would they force you to come to such a dangerous place? Said Yishuan with a frown. Within a force, it was necessary to train these geniuses appropriately. However, if a group of sage realm experts were to come to this place where there were great sages, transcendent realm resentful spirits, and ghosts everywhere, it wouldn't just be training these geniuses. Instead, it would be a waste of these geniuses. If he didn't make a move this time, these people might have died in the hands of the demon shadow. What's going on with the true martial school now? Don't they even understand such a simple logic? At this moment, he was filled with doubts. Did something happen during this period of time? Big senior brother is a great strategist. He shouldn't have made such a mistake no matter how he looked at it. Originally, it wouldn't be our turn. However, ever since the true martial stone sword was heavily injured by the schoolmaster, said Yi Shiwili straightforwardly. Shut up, said Yi Fengyun immediately. The schoolmaster's injury was a huge secret to a sect. How could she simply tell outsiders about it? Yi Fengyun, Shueli is right. Who doesn't know about young Lord Yi Fengyun's injury? This news has spread throughout the entire true martial world, even the other worlds. At this time, when Haoshuan frowned and said to Yi Fengyun, "What? He's injured?" Yi Shiwen was shocked and asked, "How did he get injured?" With his cultivation, he should be able to dominate the true martial domain. Moreover, he has the true martial stone sword protecting him. Who can injure him? The true martial stone sword was the most precious treasure of the true martial school. Normally, the schoolmaster would be in charge of controlling it personally. The true martial stone sword was a magic tool that was comparable to the emergence immortal exterminating saber. Huang Wuji, who controlled the true martial stone sword, should be the strongest person in the true martial domain. How could he be injured? Everyone looked at each other. This senior should have been in seclusion for a long time. Otherwise, how could he not know about such a huge incident recently? At this moment, Yi Shueli took a step forward and said, "It's all because of the remnants of the demon-worshipping cult. I don't know where they summoned a terrifying demon. In a short period of time, the entire demon-worshipping cult strength was reborn. There are many experts now. Moreover, they forced many small sects to join the demon-worshipping cult's allied forces and launched an attack on the true martial school. Especially half a month ago, a demon descended from the sky and wanted to destroy the entire true martial domain. In the end, our schoolmaster fought the demon with the true martial stone sword and forced him to retreat. However, he was also severely injured and is still in a coma." Yi Shiwen's eyes were filled with bewilderment. The great devil had transformed the entire by Ma Jiao's strength. Even Huang Wuji, with the true martial stone sword in his hand, could only force the great devil to retreat. Moreover, Huang Wuji himself was seriously injured and was still unconscious. After going through all this information in his mind, he could only come to one conclusion, and that was that this person was undoubtedly the Abyssal Demon Lord. With Huang Wuji's strength, he could even severely injure a Heaven Realm expert with the true martial stone sword. This was a magic tool that was on par with the Emergence Immortal Exterminating Saber. The reason why Yi Shiwen couldn't fully control the Emergence Immortal Exterminating Saber was because he didn't have the correct method. All these years, he had been forcefully controlling the Emergence Immortal Exterminating Saber. It couldn't be compared to the true martial school who had the correct method to train the true martial stone sword. It was even more impossible to say that the demon was summoned by the demon-worshipping cult. If the demon-worshipping cult could do it, they wouldn't have been suppressed so badly by Yi Shiwen back then. There was no reason that they couldn't do it when they were at their peak. Now that they were suppressed by Yi Shiwen to the brink of extinction, they could do it. In addition, when he saw the scene of the Abyss Demon Lord flying past after being injured, he was even more certain that the demon was definitely the Abyss Demon Lord. Apart from him, there shouldn't be anyone else who had the ability to raise the strength of the demon-worshipping cult to a level where they could contend against the true martial school in such a short period of time. However, Yi Shiwen was even more confused. Who could severely injure the Abyss Demon Lord? At his peak, the Abyss Demon Lord wasn't even a match for a king stage expert. With Huang Wuji's strength, even with the true martial stone sword, it was impossible for him to severely injure the Abyss Demon Lord. Just a battle, and he forced the Abyss Demon Lord to retreat, had already caused him to be severely injured and fall into a coma. Hence, the person who seriously injured the Abyss Demon Lord shouldn't be Huang Wuji. Otherwise, the overlords of the ancient barons would have died in shame. In that case, who was the person who seriously injured the Abyss Demon Lord? Countless thoughts flashed through Yi Shiwen's mind. Perhaps, if he could find this person, he would be able to deal with the Abyss Demon Lord that was like a bug. For the current ancient barons, the Abyss Demon Lord was an existence that was almost unsolvable. There was no way to deal with him. Moreover, since the Abyss Demon Lord had come to the true martial school, it meant that this world wasn't as hidden as Yi Shiwen had imagined. Although it was cut off from the ancient barons, it wasn't like everyone didn't know about it. At the very least, the Abyss Demon Lord knew about the existence of this region. In other words, this region was likely to fall into the flames of war. With the Abyss Demon Lord's personality, he would only be satisfied after conquering it. By then, this place would also fall into ruins. This was Yi Shiwen's route. He definitely wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. However, the most important thing right now was the matter of Huang Wuji falling into a coma. Chapter 1697. For Yi Shiwen, Huang Wuji falling into a coma was definitely the biggest matter so far. Thinking of this, he looked at everyone and asked, "What does this have to do with you guys coming here? Did someone force you to come?" They looked at each other, not knowing whether to say it or not. Although the seniors seemed to be a friend and not an enemy, some things were still related to their true martial school. For more than 100 years, the true martial school had unified the world. Those who could enter the true martial school were all top geniuses without exception. At the same time, they had also cultivated a great sense of honor and pride. Compared to the past, their centripetal force had improved by leaps and bounds. What's there to be embarrassed about? Since you guys can't say it, then let me say it. At this time, when Haoshuan cupped his hands and said, "In fact, it's not difficult to understand. In order to treat the severely injured schoolmaster, I heard that there used to be a kind of treasure in this area. It's a very important medicinal catalyst, so they sent us here." A very important medicinal catalyst? Has the true martial school declined to the extent that they can't even send a transcendent realm expert? They can't even send a great sage. So they sent you guys to take the risk? Yi Shiwen said at this time, suppressing his anger. What are the higher-ups of the true martial school thinking? These are the seeds and seedlings of the true martial school. If something happens to these people, how can the true martial school develop in the future? Senior, please calm down. This can't be helped, said Yi Fengyun. After all, the demon-worshipping religion coalition army is pressuring us. Many experts of the school are also guarding the front line. This can't be helped. Brother, you're still speaking for them. Those elders don't like our Yi family, so they want to use this method to kill us. If it weren't for the schoolmaster, I wouldn't come here to take this risk, said Yi Shuili with a slight frown. Kill us with a borrowed knife. Good, very good, said Yi Shiwen with a sneer. The true martial domain was his root, and he had poured a lot of effort into the true martial school to develop to its current stage. How could he allow someone to mess around? He suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He couldn't help but ask, "Your surname is Yi. Who is Yi Feng to you?" Senior, you know our grandfather? Yi Shuili couldn't help but look at this senior who suddenly appeared. Yes, I know him very well. Yi Shiwen laughed heartily and said. He felt somewhat emotional in his heart. Hundreds of years had passed in the blink of an eye. Several generations of the Yi clan had already been born. Yi Shiwen's face was full of gratification when he saw that both Yi Fengyun and Yi Shuili were so outstanding. I'm afraid that the entire true martial world has changed a lot in the past 100 years. The entire true martial world is under the control of the True Martial University. The central authority is centralized, so the development should be far better than before. Yi Shiwen Yi, who is has with martial Yi. With martial, Yi Chun Yi. With you. With you. With you. With you. Anyway, I have a certain relationship with your family. From what I heard just now, the people of the Elder Parliament want to kill us with a borrowed knife, right? Said Yi Shiwen with narrowed eyes. That's right, it's them. In the past, when the Mansion Master was still alive, they dared to jump up and down. Now that the Mansion Master has been injured, they've become even more arrogant. They even said that the Mansion Master is seriously injured and is not fit to continue as the Mansion Master, so they want to replace the Mansion Master. Yi Shuili quickly stepped forward and said with an indignant look on her face, "Otherwise, we won't be forced to come here to look for the drug. Moreover, they have roped in a lot of people and want to replace the schoolmaster. It's really despicable. It's been peaceful for too long. Unexpectedly, these evildoers have been raised. It's okay. I'm here. Let's see who dares to be presumptuous. Yi Shiwen stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He didn't look angry at all. Several people were shocked in their hearts. They didn't know what kind of relationship this person had with the true Martial University. How could he say such words? It could only be said that the time of their debut was too late. Many people didn't even know how many seniors and origins they had. It would probably take a long time for them to adapt. Let's go back to the true Martial University first. I want to see what kind of demons and monsters are making trouble. Yi Shiwen stood with his hands clasped behind his back like a peerless overlord. It made people have a feeling of unconsciously wanting to kneel down and worship him. But senior, we haven't found the drug yet. At this moment, Yi Fengyan spoke with a troubled expression. They had come to this ancient battlefield in order to find the medicine that could cure Huang Wuji. If they were to return now, it would be difficult for them to explain themselves when they returned. It's okay. Just listen to me and go back. You don't have to look for the drug anymore. With me here, no one can talk to you, Yi Shiwen said lightly. Although his words were careless and fierce, there was a feeling of involuntarily being convinced. If that's the case, then I'll leave it to you, senior. Yi Fengyan didn't insist at this time. Before asking about the identity of this senior, she didn't want to thoroughly anger the other party. If the other party was thoroughly angered, then they might not live past today. Under Yi Shiwen's lead, several people rushed to the true Martial University as fast as lightning. Naturally, Yi Shiwen accommodated their speed. Although Yi Shiwen was anxious, he didn't panic. He also knew that he must not panic at this time. On the contrary, he must hold on. But even so, it took more than a day for everyone to return to the true Martial University. At this time, the true Martial University was much more prosperous than when Yi Shiwen left. This was due to the development of these years, but more importantly, the demon-worshipping religion was wreaking havoc. If these people didn't want to kneel at the feet of the demon-worshipping religion and become a dog of the demon-worshipping religion, they could only rely on the true Martial University. Some forces simply moved to the vicinity of the true Martial University, making the entire true Martial University suddenly become the center of the entire true Martial domain. Countless cities suddenly rose from the ground. Everyone entered the Xin city, which was surrounded by countless cities. Back then, Yi Shiwen had started his journey of conquering the true Martial University here. Generation after generation of true Martial University's disciples had started to enter the true Martial University from here. Yi Shiwen didn't rush back. Instead, he first stayed in a nearby inn. He wanted to find out what the current true martial world had become. It wasn't as simple as knowing that it had become more prosperous. We are really old. Every generation is stronger than the previous one. In the past, the true Martial University only recruited a batch of disciples in 100 years. Now the rules have changed. They recruit a batch of disciples every 10 years. They are really more tyrannical than the previous one. In the past, a few Heaven's Pride experts were already extraordinary in one world. Now, the true martial world is open to the public once every 10 years. Among the geniuses recruited, there are endless Heaven's Pride experts. Could one imagine such a flourishing situation more than 100 years ago? What's so strange about this? More than 100 years ago, the major forces divided the true martial world equally. Therefore, they also divided the resources equally. So, they naturally couldn't keep up with the development of other worlds. Later, the true martial world unified the world and grasped the world's resources. So, it's naturally different now. We could see the competition between the Heaven's Pride experts cultivated by the major overlords in the past. Now, we can only see the competition between the internal forces of the true martial world. The atmosphere is completely different from the past. Yi Shiwen took a sip of tea and quietly listened. Many people around him couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Many people had existed since a long time ago. They had watched the development of the true martial world for the past 100 years. So, they naturally couldn't say that they didn't feel anything. However, they probably wouldn't even dream that an influential figure from more than 100 years ago was sitting beside them. It had only been more than 100 years, but everything had changed. Yi Xuan nodded slightly. It seemed that the development of the true martial university had been very good these years. In that case, choosing the big brother to become the new school lord was the right choice. At least, the true martial university couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as it was 100 years ago. Now the times have changed. There's been a tremendous change from the past. 100 years ago, who would have thought that the Tibetan Star Summit, which originally occupied the top 100 inheritance, had developed to the point of being the #1 inheritance in the true martial school? What's so strange about this? Although there weren't many people in the Tibetan Star Summit back then, there were already many heroes. Among them, the two most famous ones were the current true martial school lord, Huang Wuji, and the other legendary figure. Without him, how could the true martial school be able to unify the world? It was thanks to him that the true martial school could achieve the glory it has today. Putting aside other things, just this contribution alone was enough for the Tibetan Star Summit to have a prosperous day. This is also expected. Not to mention, after that person, Huang Wuji became the true martial school lord. With his help, as long as the Tibetan Star Summit doesn't have too many problems, it can be said that it's only a matter of time before it develops to where it is today. Moreover, the current Tibetan Star Son of the Tibetan Star Summit, by Jiansong, is not an ordinary person. He had already entered the transcendent realm decades ago. Now, he is one of the giants in our world. In the true martial school, he is also a top-level existence. Other than him, there are many experts from the Tibetan Star Summit rising one after another. With so many talents, can't they support the Tibetan Star Summit? So, there's nothing strange about this at all. Someone said while shaking his head. Obviously, he knew all about it. Chapter 1698. That's right. The Hidden Star Peak has also produced many experts since the departure of that person. Moreover, it has the support of the true martial university's lord. So, it's not surprising that it can have its current strength. Someone clearly agreed with this statement. Sigh, but it's also because of this that it has become a road to disaster at this time. Someone sighed and said, it's precisely because of the glory of the Hidden Star Peak in the past 100 years that it has now become the focus of demon-worshipping cults' attack. Moreover, the Hidden Star Peak is now ranked among the top 10 inheritances. It has also rushed to the front line in every battle. But it has suffered heavy losses now. It seems as if it has used up all of its luck overnight. There are so many heroes in the world that it can't be counted in detail. However, I'm afraid that there aren't many who can be compared with that person. That person must have been a respected figure even before the world changed. It's said that that person has gone to another world. I don't know what kind of situation he's in. Perhaps he has already made a name for himself in that other world. Sigh. 100 years have passed in a hurry. Things have changed, and people have changed. I've also watched that person grow from a newcomer all the way to an indomitable character. An old man sighed and said, 100 years had passed. It was enough time to replace the new generation. There were many new people. For the younger generation, it was already a whole new world. However, it hadn't been a long time for these old men, so it was still fresh in their memories. Grandmaster, who do you think that person is? A young girl who looked to be 15 or 16 years old asked innocently. The true martial world was many times more prosperous than before. The most intuitive point was that it was still far from enough to cultivate a new generation in the past 100 years. Many people had just touched the threshold of the sage realm at the age of 200 or 300, and they had entered the great sage realm at the age of 1,000. Even so, they were already rare geniuses. However, it couldn't be said that many people had entered the sage realm at the age of 10. However, it wasn't as rare as it used to be. Therefore, the speed of replacement from generation to generation was much faster than before. The resources that the younger generation could enjoy were also far beyond the imagination of their ancestors. That person's name is Yi Xuan. He used to be the most amazing genius of True Martial University. Now, the famous Yi clan in True Martial University is established because of him. Many people of Yi clan entered True Martial University after him. Time passed slowly. Yi clan has also become a famous clan in True Martial University. The old man said with a loving smile on his face. It sounds very powerful, the girl said innocently. But why haven't I heard of it before? What's so strange about that? He was born hundreds of years ago. Even if he left, it would have been more than 100 years. At that time, not to mention you weren't even born yet. Even your master hadn't debuted yet. The old man couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Many people in the tea house were also reminded of the past. The true martial world had been peaceful for 100 years. But it couldn't be compared with the turbulent times of the past. This was a much more prosperous era. And the one who had laid the foundation of this era was that person. Ah, so he's also an old man who is hundreds of years old. The girl thought for a while and said innocently. At the tea table next to her, Yishuan almost spurted out when he heard this sentence. He was now less than 400 years old. In his era, he could still be regarded as a young talent. However, in the eyes of the current younger generation, he was indeed like a legendary antique figure. At this time, the old man also didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If Yi Shiwen was an old man, then he was already ashes that were about to be buried. The time in the cultivation world couldn't be calculated in this way. It seemed that he had to teach this new disciple diligently. Even if that person hadn't made any progress now, he couldn't be said to be an old man. At most, he was just a young and vigorous person. Is he really that powerful? The girl continued to ask. Of course he's powerful. The current true martial university's Mu Shungjie is powerful. His prestige shakes the world. Who can compete with him? He's invincible. It is said that he is the only person who can compete with Huang Wuji. However, he was defeated by him in the past, said the old man. The girl's eyes suddenly lit up. She continued to ask, where is such a powerful person now? Why is there no news at all? He left. No one knows where he went. Some say that he went to another world. Some say that he passed away. Some say that he ascended. It has been more than 100 years since that battle. No one knows the truth anymore. However, his arrival brought a whole new era, which is why you have the conditions you have now. However, his departure also represents the end of an era. Although there are many peers who are now in high positions, they can't break through to his height, explained the old man. Many people also had complicated feelings at this time. More than 100 years was not a long time. Many people who competed with Yi Shiwen in the past still existed. The remaining people, even if they had never competed with him, had heard of his prestige. Suddenly, a cold snort came from outside the tea house. This evaluation isn't fair. The Transcendent Realm Powerhouse has a lifespan of more than 10,000 years. They're all in their prime. The competition has just begun, and the outcome has already been determined. This isn't fair either. Back then, he was indeed slightly better. However, now that my master has been cultivating hard for many years, his cultivation is no longer the same as before. It's completely different. Now that they're fighting again, it's still unknown who will win. At this time, everyone was so scared that they shut their mouths. They were just individual cultivators. It didn't matter if they casually commented on the internal affairs of True Martial School at this time. However, there were disciples of True Martial School here. Moreover, there was also a descendant of Mu Xingjie. So, how could they have the guts to continue speaking at this time? True Martial School had unified the world for more than 100 years. During this period, various sects hoped to send their outstanding disciples to True Martial School to receive better training. Of course, at the same time, it was also another form of continuation of their own sect's inheritance. These disciples who entered True Martial School would also take care of their sects in turn. It was just like how Yi Shiwen helped the Yuan sect several times in the past. It was the same principle. True Martial University had lost half of its territory to the coalition forces of Bai Majiao and had been retreating step by step. However, the heritage of True Martial University was still the most terrifying colossus in the world even under such circumstances. Grandmaster, why are you all not talking? Is this person very powerful? At this moment, the naive little girl said in a low voice. She looked very careful, but it made her look even cuter. Of course, if I didn't guess wrong, this person should be the most famous rising genius under Mu Xingjie, Wan Xingheng. This Wan Xingheng has entered the sage realm at a young age. He can be regarded as one of the top few in the younger generation. The old man explained. He is just in the sage realm. Grandmaster, you are a great sage. Are you still afraid of him? The little girl asked in confusion. I'm not afraid of him, but I respect the power of true martial school. Do you understand? How can a great sage in his twilight years be compared with a vigorous sage realm like him? The old man sighed and said, he was not completely in his twilight years, but compared with these emerging young powerhouses, he also had to admit that he was in his twilight years. Wan Xingheng, the fight between the elders has long been settled. Even your grandmaster has publicly admitted that he is not as good as my grandmaster. What do you mean now? Are you bullying my grandmaster because he is not here and can't refute? At this time, Yi Fengyan, who was at Yi Shiwen's table, couldn't help but say loudly. Then, she turned to Yi Shiwen and said, Senior, I am sorry. They are really too much. The reputation of the ancestors cannot be insulted. Yi Shiwen glanced at Yi Fengyan noncommittally. He didn't mean to be angry. After all, Yi Fengyan wanted to stand up for him. Yi Fengyan, you're here too. Is it interesting to listen to others praising your grandmaster? No matter how glorious he was, it is already in the past. God knows where he is now. Maybe he has fallen. At this time, the voice continued to come in. What? Yi Fengyan is here too. Yi Fengyan? I have heard of her. She is the most talented disciple among the younger generation of Yi clan. It is said that she has the style of Yi Shiwen in the past. Yi Fengyan and Wan Xingheng are the top geniuses of true martial university. They have made a name for themselves. This is interesting. Are they going to fight? Wan Xingheng, what's the use of just talking and not practicing? I have also heard that your control crane's 7 divine hands has been practiced to the point of perfection. Today, I want to experience it. You and I have been standing side by side for so many years. It is time to see who is better. Yi Fengyan didn't have stage fright, but continued to speak in a loud voice. What's so difficult about this? I will teach you a lesson today. Your Yi clan has obtained too many benefits by relying on that person. However, these benefits can't be obtained out of thin air. You have to pay the price. If you want to fight to your heart's content, then come out. The voice came in. It was similarly arrogant and unruly. It didn't want to admit defeat at all. Senior, I will come back after the fight. Yi Fengyan cupped his hands and said, Go. Yi Shiwen said lightly. Many people around the tea table looked at Yi Shiwen one after another. They didn't know where this big shot came from. Yi Fengyan was the leader of the younger generation of true martial university. Many great sages had to treat him as an equal. Some even had to curry favor with Yi clan. However, Yi Fengyan was so respectful to Yi Shiwen now. Who was he? Chapter 1699. Many people were curious about this. The Yi clan was now a famous and influential clan in the true martial university. It was an independent entity. It had the backing of the Hidden Star Peak and the Supreme Lord of the true martial university. Moreover, the members of the Yi clan were also outstanding. It had become a first-class, influential clan in a short span of 100 years since Yi Shiwen had left. As the saying goes, the predecessors plant trees, and the descendants enjoy the shade. If it was Yi Shiwen in the past, how could he have received so much attention? Yi clan's illustrious reputation was mostly due to his invincible reputation. Geniuses from generation to generation compete with each other. It has never stopped. Yi Shiwen recalled the time when he was striving for supremacy in true martial university. In the blink of an eye, he had also become a legendary senior antique. He couldn't help but have some understanding in his heart. Life and death accompanied each other. It was an endless cycle that had never stopped. At this time, he seemed to have some understanding in his heart. Senior, that Wan Xingheng is so hateful. He has made things difficult for my brother again and again. Yi Shiwen frowned and said with dissatisfaction, My brother didn't want to argue with him at first, but now he dares to question my granduncle. It's intolerable. The glory of Yi clan can't rely on him alone. In the end, it still depends on your generation. The glory of Yi clan can only continue when you are outstanding. Yi Shiwen smiled and said indifferently, "Let's go." Mu Shengjie and Yi Shiwen were both extremely outstanding geniuses in the past. Mu Shengjie was defeated by Yi Shiwen. However, his martial power has advanced to an incredible level in recent years. He can be said to be invincible in the true martial university except for a few people. Even those retired seniors of the previous generation aren't his match. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go and watch the battle between Yi Fengyun and Wan Xingheng. That's right. Mu Shengjie's martial power has already reached an incredible level. It's just that Yi Shiwen has traveled far. I don't know if he will have the opportunity to return in this life. Now, the competition between the younger generation can be regarded as an extension of their struggle. Many people followed after him. Yi Shiwen was a legend. However, Mu Shengjie had also established an illustrious reputation over the years. Many people had the same thought in their hearts. The outcome of this battle might have been unknown if Yi Shiwen was still here. However, there was no way to verify this thought in the absence of Yi Shiwen. Therefore, it was rare for such an opportunity to let the younger generation fight. It could also be regarded as a disguised fight between them. In any case, they couldn't forget Yi Shiwen's illustrious and ferocious prowess in the past. Not only was he invincible in the true martial world, but he had also defeated the experts from other big worlds who had invaded the true martial world. This was the fundamental reason for his current supreme prestige. In the void, a figure jumped out. Yi Fengyun and Wan Xingheng. Yi Fengyun and Wan Xingheng were the two most tyrannical geniuses in true martial university. The battle with Bai Majiao had never stopped. However, it didn't prevent people from caring about this battle. The two of them had been the outstanding talents of the younger generation for many years. And they were finally going to determine the victor and the loser at this time. They were going to kill each other to determine who was the strongest. It was just like Huang Wuji and Mu Shengjie back then. They were each other's biggest opponents. Moreover, this was a disguised fight between Mu Shengjie and Yi Shiwen. Everyone was naturally very interested at this time. Xian City and the nearby cities were naturally not suitable for a duel. Instead, they went straight to a battlefield in the depths of the true martial university. Formidable experts had once fought in this battlefield. So, the space law had been reinforced countless times. So, it was already very firm. So, it wouldn't collapse so easily. Sage-level experts couldn't be regarded as the top experts in true martial world. However, they could be regarded as having the power to destroy the world. Yi Shiwen took a sip of tea. Yi Xueli and the others looked at Yi Shiwen at this time. It was obvious that they also wanted to see this crucial battle. However, they didn't dare to act rashly in front of Yi Shiwen. Let's go. Let's also go and see. Yi Shiwen smiled. He didn't insist on staying here. His divine sense was more than enough to cover the entire battlefield. So he didn't need to go in person. Perhaps it was because this battlefield had endured too many battles, but at this time, the vitality had already been completely destroyed. Not a single blade of grass grew, and it was like a barren desert. Looking over, it was a world of death. Who do you think will win? I think it should be the Yi Fengyun. After all, Yi Shiwen was so outstanding in the past, and Yi clan has risen strongly in recent years. I'm afraid that they are also very outstanding. Yi Fengyun's name has already shaken the world at such a young age, someone said. I don't think so. Yi Shiwen has left for more than 100 years. It is said that he didn't leave behind any powerful power technique. However, Wan Xingheng has been personally guided by Mu Shengjie for many years. Yi Fengyun's talent isn't inferior to Wan Xingheng's. Moreover, she also has Yi clan's resources. She shouldn't be Wan Xingheng's opponent. Someone objected. You're wrong. Yi Shiwen isn't here. But Huang Wuji and Bai Jiansong aren't ordinary people. Under their guidance, Yi Fengyun naturally shouldn't be worse than anyone else. Someone retorted. Everyone couldn't help but have a myriad of thoughts. Everyone had their own opinions. However, after all, they had come into contact with the most tyrannical group of people in true martial world. Nobody knew whether they were strong or weak. So, they rarely fought with each other. So, all of this was just their imagination. There wasn't a specific description for water gun and water ruah. However, they could more or less see it through the fight between these two people. He's here! Yi Fengyan was the first to appear at this time. He had a heroic spirit. He stood with his hands behind his back. His bearing was extraordinary. Is this Yi Fengyan? Sure enough, his bearing is extraordinary. He deserves to be the top genius cultivated by Yi family and true martial school. Someone said with emotion. It is said that he had entered the sage realm a few years ago. Now his cultivation has reached an incredible level. There are even rumors that he has entered the great sage realm. He is one of the leaders of the current true martial school. No, it should be said that he is one of the leaders of the younger generation in the entire true martial domain. Yi Fengyan stood in the void. He was motionless like a stone statue, but he exuded an extraordinary aura. Yi Shiwen glanced around. There were many figures in the void. Many powerful auras were hidden in the void. They were all great sages and even transcendent realm masters. They were hidden very well, but how could they hide from Yi Shiwen's eyes? Among the gazes that were looking at Yi Fengyan, some were friendly, and some were filled with hatred. Among them, Yi Shiwen saw a few old friends. They were all people that Yi Shiwen knew back then. After not seeing them for so many years, their cultivations had already reached another realm. Although they weren't as strong as Yi Shiwen, their improvements weren't small. Over the years, Yi Shiwen wasn't the only one who had improved. Huang Wuji and the others had also undergone tremendous changes. However, some people hid very well, while some people came with great fanfare. Rumble! There was a strange movement in the heavens and earth. An extremely tyrannical, transcendent realm expert was like a deity. He stepped on a meteor and stood in the void. His gaze towards Yi Fengyan was very kind. Yi Shiwen recognized this person at first glance. Wasn't that Ngbubi? Back then, he was the first batch of geniuses that the Tibetan Star Summit recruited after they opened their doors to recruit disciples. Now, the younger generation had already entered the transcendent realm. It was obvious that he was here to support Yi Fengyan. Ngbubi actually came personally. I heard that he's a young genius that Yi Shiwen personally recruited back then. He has been fighting in the world for many years, and his achievements are outstanding. He has already entered the transcendent realm. Now, he's one of the pillars of the Tibetan Star Summit's younger generation. Yi Fengyan, I've heard about it too. Go all out and fight. With me here, no one will dare to play tricks on you. No one is allowed to humiliate the people of the Tibetan Star Summit, said Ngbubi in a domineering manner. Ngbubi had a high status within the Tibetan Star Summit. Although he wasn't as powerful as Bai Jiansong, he was still one of the higher-ups within the Tibetan Star Summit. At this moment, he had already developed a domineering aura. Are you talking about me? At this moment, the sky rumbled, and another person arrived while riding on a five-colored radiance. The Law Enforcement Hall's Deputy Hall Master, Xia Yi. He's Mu Xingjie's favorite assistant. All these years, he helped Mu Xingjie manage the Law Enforcement Hall and achieved many outstanding achievements. He's not an ordinary person, said someone in shock. It's just a battle between two juniors. Why are all these important figures here one after another? From the looks of it, they don't seem to be on good terms with each other. You don't know about this. It's said that the Supreme School Master is already severely injured and has fallen into a coma. There are already undercurrents surging, and many people aren't at ease. This is the crucial time for us to fight against the demon-worshipping cult coalition army. Moreover, the Supreme School Master has fallen into a coma. Many people are thinking of appointing another Supreme School Master. Among them, Mu Xingjie has always been domineering. He's also a suitable candidate in the eyes of many people. Right now, although Mu Xingjie hasn't expressed his stance, many people in the Law Enforcement Hall are already building up support for him. They hope that he can ascend to the top. Back then, Mu Xingjie was a strong candidate for the position of Supreme School Master. One could say that he wasn't inferior to Huang Wuji. However, he lost to Yi Shiwen back then. In the end, the Supreme School Master chose Huang Wuji as the successor. However, if the Supreme School Master doesn't wake up in time, the situation of the Supreme School Master being without a leader has to be changed. Mu Xingjie is indeed a suitable candidate. Chapter 1700. Although it wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy for him at his age. In the past, Yi Shiwen, Huang Wuji, and Mu Xingjie all had the strength and qualifications to compete for the position of Supreme Schoolmaster. You're finally here. Yi Fingyun's eyes flickered as he looked at Wan Xingheng and said, countless tyrannical brilliance under his feet spread out. The entire void was like the Big Bang of the universe. Sand and stones flew everywhere. Countless stars were annihilated, and countless stars were produced. In an instant, the entire world seemed to be in a frenzy. Yes, I'm going to teach you a lesson. Wan Xingheng's attitude was casual. His body was filled with a strong fighting spirit. Now is not the time for you to be arrogant. Control Crane's 7 divine hands instantly grabbed the sky and tore through the void. Finally, the collision between the two sides caused the entire void to shatter with a loud bang. It was like a huge atomic bomb had exploded, and a huge mushroom cloud rose up. The energy turned into a torrent and blasted into the endless horizon. The Supreme Schoolmaster was very anxious. This was the fundamental reason why Yi Fengyun and the others went to the battlefield even though they knew that they were killing with a borrowed knife. They couldn't wait any longer. If it was a peaceful time, the Elder Council would naturally be in charge. True martial school would operate normally, and it would not be difficult. However, the demon-worshipping religion coalition army was eyeing them covetously. They couldn't wait for Huang Wuji to wake up. If this continues, it won't take long for him to sweep away the Great Sage Realm after entering the Great Sage Realm. However, for the two factions that were in the middle, it was a matter of life and death. They couldn't ignore it. However, the collision between the two continued. The real elemental energy of both sides surged in an instant, and a mighty force blasted towards each other. Their sleeves instantly flew up. Many people were secretly surprised. It was just a collision of the Sage Realm level, and it was already so amazing. What would happen if they fully grew up? Their faces changed all of a sudden. However, now that Huang Wuji had fallen into a coma, the true martial school really needed a leader. At this time, the law enforcement hall, which had been quiet for a long time, also began to move. They started to build momentum for Mu Xingjie. This scene was really too shocking. Many people's faces turned pale, especially the experts of the younger generation who boasted about their strength. They thought that they could compete with the two of them. But now, it seemed that they were simply not on the same level. Everyone couldn't help but turn pale all of a sudden. At this time, Yi Shiwen expressed his position and stood on Huang Wuji's side. This was the final bargaining chip that allowed Huang Wuji to win this battle and successfully ascend to the throne. After Huang Wuji ascended to the throne, a series of actions also reflected that he was indeed a master of great talent and bold vision. Slowly, everyone accepted this result. The fistful was monstrous. In an instant, it turned into a huge star and came crashing down. If Huang Wuji was still awake, he could naturally suppress everything with his prestige over the years. But now, no one could keep Mu Xingjie in check. Wan Xingheng's mastery of the control Crane's 7 divine hands could be said to be perfect. However, Yi Fingyun's mastery of the Shattered Star Fist was not inferior to Wan Xingheng's control Crane's 7 divine hands. This wave of fierce collision caused countless space to distort crazily, and cracks appeared on the ground. The true martial school had indeed made great progress over the years. Yi Fingyun's face remained unchanged. He was as majestic as a mountain. An extremely powerful divine light burst out from his eyes. At this time, he attacked. He was fast to the extreme. He directly grabbed a sword from the void with one hand and instantly slashed out a waterfall. It swept down from the sky, and it was incomparably sharp. However, everyone's thoughts only flashed a little. Then, the fierce collision between the two sides began again like Mars colliding with Earth. This time, Yi Fengyun took the initiative and took the lead to attack. In the face of the law enforcement hall's aggressiveness, the bloodline of the schoolmaster, especially the bloodline of the Tibetan Star Summit, naturally did not hesitate to fight back. This battle between these two people immediately caused such a big sensation and attracted so many experts to watch. To a large extent, it was related to the battle between these two bloodlines. No matter who won or lost, the person who won would add points to his camp and attract more heroes to join him. It seemed that his control Crane's 7 divine hands was about to catch Yi Fengyun's sword light. However, the corners of Yi Fengyun's mouth suddenly rose. She reversed her figure in the void, and the piercing cold light abruptly changed its trajectory in the air. It directly pierced down from above and went straight for his head. It was fast and ruthless. The endless power of the stars set off bursts of waves and swept towards Wan Xingheng. However, although Yi Shiwen's strength was outstanding, he didn't have such thoughts. It could be said that he didn't have enough ambition. However, Huang Wuji and Mu Xingjie were different. Both of them were heaven-warping geniuses. Moreover, they were full of ambition and bold vision. Either one of them had the qualifications to take over the position of the schoolmaster. Humph, you'll know once you try. Wan Xingheng sneered. He instantly attacked at this time. His speed was extremely fast. He directly stretched out his hand, and a faint crane cry came from his body. Not bad. Yi Shiwen nodded. He was very familiar with the control Crane's 7 divine hands. It was the unique skill that Mu Xingjie was famous for. In fact, he himself had also practiced the control Crane's 7 divine hands. Therefore, he could naturally see that Wan Xingheng's cultivation wasn't at the peak. However, his innate talent was extremely high. He had already practiced the control Crane's 7 divine hands to the point of perfection. Yi Shiwen's eyesight penetrated through the layers of space. It was a young man in his 20s. His momentum was like a mountain that could swallow the world. His whole body was blooming with bright light. He was indeed a young hero. And just as everyone was discussing, suddenly, in the air, a cold light flashed. It was Yi Fengyun. She directly split the mushroom cloud with her sword, and with a terrifying momentum, she descended from the sky like a rock spreading its wings. With a shocking movement technique, she stabbed her sword towards Wan Xingheng. At this time, the other protagonist, Wan Xingheng, finally arrived. His figure pierced through the sky like a graceful swan. He looked up to the sky and let out a clear roar. The real elemental energy of his whole body spread out and turned into the power of the stars. He directly launched his fist in tension. In an instant, it covered the sky. It was as if everything between heaven and earth had disappeared. It had become a universe, and he was the only true god in this universe. The true martial school was powerful. Over the years, some of the secrets of the true martial school had long been known to everyone, especially the descendants of the schoolmaster. They couldn't admit defeat. Although they had been operating for many years and had a deep foundation, they had a fatal weakness. Huang Wuji was unconscious. They were like dragons without a leader. Although Bai Jiansong and others were extremely strong, they couldn't convince the masses like Huang Wuji. The two of them unloaded the pressure on the ground at the same time, causing the ground to be densely packed with cracks. With the place where the two of them clashed as the center, the cracks spread out for hundreds of miles. It was an extremely frightening sight. Boom! The collision between the two was like a needle against an awn. It was a fierce confrontation. The martial arts of both sides could be said to be at the peak of perfection. The basic martial arts could even be said to be at the transcendent realm level. When used by these sage realm warriors, it had extraordinary power. Teach me a lesson? It's ridiculous. Even if the schoolmaster is unconscious, it is not the time for you to have ambitions, said Yi Fengyun. Dang! For these masters who came from small sects, these were tantamount to looking at flowers in the fog. In fact, these had nothing to do with them. Whether it was Mu Xingjie or Huang Wuji, it would not have much impact on them. For a giant like the true martial school, they were just ants. Even if they were seriously injured now, it was still not an existence that they could reach. These two people, is this still the strength of the sage realm? I'm afraid that such strength is enough to sweep the entire sage realm, said a person of the older generation as he looked at their battle situation in amazement. The first collision was a draw. Yi Fingyun's swordsmanship was also not bad. Although it could be seen that he was not a sword cultivator, he was more tyrannical than many sword cultivators. Mu Xingjie had cultivated for hundreds of years. Naturally, his skills were self-evident. Yi Shiwen had the mysterious space as an accelerator, so he could master it in a short time. It was enough to show that he could master the control Crane's 7 divine hands to this extent. Big Bang Stardust Fist. Yi Shiwen's famous lost technique. I didn't expect that Yi Fengyun would choose to practice this power technique. It's no wonder that he has the style of Yi Shiwen. It's really so. This was a collision between two big camps. So, there was no possibility for either of them to retreat. Wan Xingheng's pupils suddenly contracted in the face of this extremely fast sword technique. Then, he patted his palm and grabbed the sword light. It seemed as if he wanted to grab the sword light and crush it. Big Bang, Stardust Fist. Wan Xingheng's martial power had indeed reached an unimaginable level in the Sage Realm. Yi Shiwen nodded as he looked at the battle between these two. He was standing at a different height from these people. After all, both Yi Fengyun and Wan Xingheng were disciples of the true martial school. An incomparably loud sound of collision was heard. The control Crane's 7 divine hands had collided with Yi Fengyun's sword light. Endless divine light splashed out and set off waves of air that swept out in all directions. His fingers were like jade. The power of this attack was infinite, and its speed was extremely fast. It had already arrived in front of Yi Fengyun in an instant. Come on! Wan Xingheng wasn't afraid. He spread out his smooth, jade-like hand and instantly stretched it out. It then collided with Yi Fengyun's Big Bang Stardust Fist. Chapter 1701. The sword light tore through the void. It had the momentum to swallow mountains and rivers. Break for me! Wan Xingyun shouted loudly. A shadow of a red-crowned crane appeared on his body and shrouded him. Yi Fengyun's sword light tore through the void and directly chopped the red-crowned crane on the surface of Wan Xingyun's body. The red-crowned crane was instantly smashed into pieces. However, his sword light also completely turned into nothingness in this violent collision. At the same time, Wan Xingyun directly stretched out his hand. His white jade-like palm directly burst out jade-like rays of light. It was blazing and dazzling. In an instant, he had already arrived in front of Yi Fengyun and instantly chopped down. At this critical moment, Yi Fengyun instantly reacted. Her figure distorted in the void and evaded Wan Xingyun's hand. She waved her sword, and a fierce sword light burst out. It directly swept towards Wan Xingyun's sword like a wave and set off earth-shattering might. Wan Xingyun retreated again and again after his attack failed. He repeatedly blasted the control Crane 7 divine hands and directly dispersed the oncoming sword light. All of this took a long time to describe. However, it was over in an instant. Both sides were facing each other in the void. They knew that the other side was not an ordinary person. Both of them are very strong. I'm afraid that they have already reached the Sage Great Perfection realm. They are only a step away from entering the Great Sage realm. It can be seen from this fight that their strength is far beyond ordinary people. This Wan Xingheng has already practiced the control Crane 7 divine hands to the point of perfection. His attack and defense are integrated into one. He is almost invincible. This Yi Fengyun is also very good. Her sword technique and fist technique are both extraordinary. She has the power to break the universe. She deserves to be the direct descendant of the 2 most powerful lineages of the true martial university. Everyone suddenly started to discuss. Senior, can my brother win? Yi Shuili looked at Yi Fengyun worriedly. Originally, she was very confident in Yi Fengyun. Her brother had been a world-famous genius since he was young. He had never lost to anyone in the same generation. She thought that it would be a piece of cake to take down Wan Xingheng. Who would have thought that when they really fought, she realized that Wan Xingheng wasn't someone easy to deal with. Obviously, he was a real genius. He was actually able to fight evenly with Yi Fengyun. Yi Shiwen glanced at the two of them and couldn't help but smile. He said, "Don't worry, that kid hasn't used his full strength yet. Both of them were famous geniuses in the true martial university. The existence of each other had undoubtedly played a very good role in motivating them. Only by maintaining such competition could they grow quickly. It was just like the fundamental reason why Huang Wuji and Mu Xingjie had been able to surpass their peers in the past. It was because they had such an opponent. Their mutual promotion made them not dare to relax in the slightest. Yi Xuan was thinking about how to solve the current situation of the true martial university. It was worse than he had imagined. It could be said that there were internal and external troubles. It was like a mess. If Yi Xuan's body was healthy, he could solve them one by one. But now, time waited for no one. Perhaps he could only adopt some extreme methods to cut the Gordian knot. Don't force me. Yi Xuan's eyes flashed with a terrifying light. Really? Yi Xueli's small face revealed a happy expression. If someone else had said this, she might not have believed it. But it was the words of this mysterious senior. So, it was naturally credible. You're invincible. I haven't seen you for many years, and you've grown to this point. Yi Xuan said with a slight smile. Huh? Senior? What did you say? Yi Xueli asked. No, nothing. Let's continue watching. Yi Xuan smiled and shook his head. At this time, Yi Fingyun's aura had skyrocketed. She was like the only true god in the universe. She had an imposing aura that could swallow everything. Wan Xingheng was also incomparably powerful. Every move of his seemed to be able to shake the universe and shatter the chaos. Both of them had already integrated their own martial arts into their own bodies. Their understanding of martial arts was not simple at all. At this time, both sides finally moved. The first one to attack was Wan Xingheng. He casually attacked, and the entire sky was covered with jade-like rays of light. It's time to end this, Yi Fengyin shouted. The long sword in her hand danced in the sky, and the rays of light filled the sky. It whistled and slashed towards Wan Xingheng like a huge mountain range. Compared to before, it was even stronger. Only then did everyone suddenly become shocked. It turned out that Yi Fengyin had been hiding her strength. She hadn't used her full strength. Bang! A loud and deafening sound echoed. A terrible explosion shook the sky and the earth. Yi Fingyun's sword had directly smashed Wan Xingheng's control crane's 7 divine hands. How is this possible? You've already entered the half-step sage realm. No, you're still a little bit away. Wan Xingheng suddenly became extremely frightened. He had originally thought that his and Yi Fingyun's cultivation should be almost the same. He had already entered the sage accomplished realm. However, there should still be some gap between him and the half-step great sage realm. Who would have thought that Yi Fengyin had already entered the half-step great sage realm? This wasn't just a little bit faster than his own. He blasted several control crane 7 divine hands in succession and smashed the sword light. However, Yi Fingyun's next sword light had already chopped down. Bang! 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 Yi Fengyin had completely grasped the initiative. Her martial power was more profound than Wan Xingheng's. She was just testing his cultivation a moment ago. She had completely grasped the situation. She finally attacked with all her strength. Her sword light filled the sky. The sword light fell down one after another. There wasn't even the slightest bit of air. Wan Xingheng didn't crouch to resist. However, his control crane 7 divine hands couldn't resist Yi Fingyun's sword light at all. The range of his defense was constantly being compressed. Bang! A loud bang was heard. Wan Xingheng's control crane's 7 divine hands couldn't resist at all and collapsed completely. However, Yi Fingyun's sword light quietly arrived and directly bombarded Wan Xingheng's body. It caused an earth-shattering explosion, and he was sent flying with a loud bang. Puff! Wan Xingheng crashed and broke a mountain peak. Then he stopped. He spouted a mouthful of blood and fainted. This is the outcome? Oh my God, this is completely unimaginable. I thought that both of them would be evenly matched. Yeah, I also didn't expect this. This Yi Fengyin deserves to be Yi Xuan's successor. This is equivalent to Yi Xuan's lineage winning against Mu Xingjie's lineage once again. This is the first time that both of them are fighting after 100 years. He's worthy of being a member of the Yi clan. I seem to see Yi Shiwen's shadow again. Someone sighed with emotion. Everyone was dumbfounded. They didn't expect that the winner would be decided just like that. After a while, they started to discuss among themselves like a boiling pot. Humph! At this moment, Xia Yi snorted coldly. His expression was extremely ugly. He thought that he could embarrass the Tibetan Star Summit, but he realized that he was the one who was embarrassed. He could only bring Wan Xingheng and leave. Yi Fengyun was the only one left in the sky. She seemed to be enjoying the glory of a victor. "Haha, well done!" Ing Booby laughed out loud. He also heaved a sigh of relief. At such a tense moment, Yi Fengyun's victory was undoubtedly very important to the prefecture master's lineage. She had gained a very important bargaining chip. However, I still have to criticize your recklessness. Is that battlefield a place where people like you can go? This time, I came out of seclusion intending to go there personally. Who knew that I would hear that you were instigated to go there? Reckless. When did you become such a person? Luckily, you came back safely. Ing Booby couldn't help but reprimand him. He had always admired this junior, Yi Fengyun. However, when he heard that these juniors dared to go to the battlefield, he was furious. He hurriedly came out of seclusion, intending to go to the battlefield and get them back. Who knew that he would hear that they had returned and that they were going to fight Wan Xingheng? That was why he rushed over. He believed that no one would dare to do anything to Yi Fengyun. After all, the Tibetan Star Summit wasn't the same as it was 200 or 300 years ago. They had the top 100 legacies, but their true strength wasn't even at the level of the top 1,000. Now, they were truly one of the top 10 legacies. Moreover, they seemed to be the leader of the top 10 legacies, who would dare to make things difficult for their disciples. However, just in case he still came, moreover, he was also prepared for the possible consequences if Yi Fengyun failed. Fortunately, Yi Fengyun won. The backup plan that he had prepared was useless now. Yi Fengyun couldn't help but feel a little awkward. Now that he thought about it, this matter was indeed very reckless. If they hadn't coincidentally met that senior, they might have been finished. He could only say that they were lucky this time. He didn't hide anything and told Ing Booby about meeting this senior. Senior? Ing Booby frowned. What senior? The true martial school had only flourished for the past 100 years. However, they had once ruled over the true martial domain. Their foundation was extremely deep. God knew how many seniors lived in seclusion in the mountains or were on good terms with the true martial school. However, since this senior didn't have any ill intentions towards them and brought Yi Fengyun and the others back safely, it was reasonable for him to pay a visit. No matter what, we are indebted to this senior. Since I already know about it, I can't just ignore it. Come, follow me to pay a visit to this senior. Said Ing Booby. Over 100 years, he, who was once an unruly genius in the north, had been trained into a higher management of the Tibetan Star Summit. Chapter 1702. However, when Ing Booby found Yi Shiweli and the others, he found out that the senior had already left. Yi Fengyun and the others couldn't help but feel a little depressed. At this time, the senior had left, and they might have lost a useful helper. Following Yi Fengyun's defeat of Wan Xingheng, this news spread throughout the entire true martial school overnight. Yi Fengyun's reputation soared. Originally, Wan Xingheng and Yi Fengyun had been at the same level for many years. In the eyes of many, they should be on par. However, in the end, Yi Fengyun defeated Wan Xingheng. After defeating Wan Xingheng, Yi Fengyun already had the demeanor of the number one person in the younger generation. Many people even regarded him as the number one person in the younger generation. As for the schoolmaster's faction, they also took this opportunity to boost Yi Fengyun's momentum. In one fell swoop, they managed to suppress the Law Enforcement Hall's faction. Under such circumstances, the Law Enforcement Hall's faction finally couldn't take it anymore. They requested to convene an elder council to discuss the matter of electing a new schoolmaster. Although the Law Enforcement Hall's faction didn't make up the majority, the demon-worshipping religions coalition army was pressing harder and harder. Without a leader, they couldn't continue like this. Even the faction of the schoolmaster and the Tibetan Star Summit had to admit this. Without a leader, It was extremely disadvantageous for the true martial school to face the attack of demon-worshipping religion. Under such circumstances, even the Palace Lord's faction could not stop the convening of the elders' meeting when the crowd was riled up. It seemed that electing a new schoolmaster, or at least an acting schoolmaster, had become an urgent matter. Without a leader, the true martial school suffered many losses in the face of the demon-worshipping religion's coalition army's attack. The Elder Council usually had the effect of gathering people's wisdom and strength. However, at this critical moment, they needed someone who could make the final decision. They shouldn't waste time arguing with each other. If they weren't careful, the foundation of the true martial school would be overturned. At the same time, when everyone's gaze was on the law enforcement hall, and Mu Xingjie, who was in closed-door cultivation, also welcomed a special guest. "Who is it? Come out." Mu Xingjie suddenly opened his eyes. He was extremely shocked in his heart. What kind of important place was his closed-door training place? It was also classified as a top secret in the true martial school. Not to mention that the outside was heavily guarded, just the inside was already heavily guarded. However, someone still managed to break in. How could he not be shocked? "Long time no see," a clear and bright voice was heard. Then, a green shadow appeared in front of Mu Xingjie. "It's you?" Mu Xingjie opened his eyes wide. He looked at the person in front of him in disbelief. He couldn't believe that this person was actually Yi Shiwen. That's right, the one standing in front of him now was Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen left immediately after Yi Fengyun had won. He wanted to find the real leader of the true martial university. He wanted to find the key to solve this mess. At least the law enforcement hall couldn't drag him down from behind at this time. After all, Mu Xingjie was an outstanding person. He quickly calmed down. He looked at Yi Shiwen and said, "Why are you back? When did you come back?" Although he really wanted to know where Yi Shiwen had been all these years and what kind of fortuitous encounters he had, Yi Shiwen's experiences over the years were something that only a few people in the true martial school knew. Other than Huang Wuji and a few others, no one knew that Yi Shiwen had gone to the ancient Baron's continent. So, he also wanted to know why Yi Shiwen chose to return to the true martial school at this time. But in the end, he still forcibly suppressed the doubts in his heart. "I came back not long ago. I felt that the true martial school was going to be in trouble, so I rushed back," said Yi Shiwen. Mu Xingjie glanced at Yi Shiwen with a strange look on his face. However, he was no longer entangled in this issue in his heart. After all, there was no place in the true martial university that could stop Yi Shiwen. He had been invincible in the world 100 years ago. So, it was hard to imagine how profound his martial power had become in the last 100 years. So, it wouldn't be surprising if he could do anything. "I think you must have heard about the recent events." Yi Shiwen glanced at Mu Xingjie and said, "But no matter what your original intentions were, at least stop it now." Yi Shiwen's voice was overbearing, but it was unquestionable. Mu Xingjie suddenly smiled bitterly. How could he not know about the disturbances in the outside world during this period of time? Although he had been in close cultivation, it was not a life-and-death cultivation. Therefore, he more or less knew about these things. Many people wanted to elect him as the schoolmaster to resist the demon-worshipping religion coalition. Although this matter was not instigated by him, he was also eager to give it a try. He did not feel that his ability was inferior to Huang Wuji's. In fact, he even felt that he should be stronger than Huang Wuji. The last time he lost, to a large extent, was because of Yi Shiwen. And this time, Yi Shiwen wasn't here. This was a great opportunity for him. Moreover, the allied forces of Bai Majiao were aggressive, and the true martial university was in a state of panic. He felt that he had the ability and obligation to stand up and lead the true martial university to stand at the peak of the true martial world. But who knew that when he finally saw some hope, Yi Shiwen would come back? I also don't want the true martial school to fall into internal strife now, because the true martial school may face a disaster, Yi Shiwen said with a worried expression. Naturally, he was not talking about the people of demon-worshipping religion. Even if there were 100 of them, they would not be his opponent. But what he cared about was the Abyss Devil Lord. Although he did not know why the Abyss Devil Lord came to this world, and he did not know when he would come back, once he came back, it would be a disaster. The ancient Baron's continent could resist the Abyss Devil Lord because of the deep foundation of the human race, but the true martial domain was far inferior to the ancient Barons. Once he came back, it would be a situation of certain death. Disaster? What do you mean? Mu Shungjie said. Is it those people of demon-worshipping religion? Those trash of demon-worshipping religion. I don't care even if there are 10 times more of them. Yi Shiwen stood with his hands behind his back and said. His expression was incomparably confident. Then, you mean? Mu Shungjie said. He came before, but he was scared away by the senior brother. I thought you knew. Yi Shiwen said. You mean that? Mu Shungjie couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The shock that the Abyss Devil Lord gave him was too strong. It was as if he could destroy the world. He almost thought that the true martial school was doomed this time. If Huang Wuji didn't make a move at the last moment and scare the other party into retreating, perhaps the true martial school would be finished this time. But he also knew that Yi Shiwen would not mention that for no reason. Do you know his origin? Mu Shungjie said. There was only one possibility as to why Yi Shiwen had suddenly returned after leaving for many years. It could only be because of that thing. After all, he had said before that he wouldn't care even if there were 10 times more of demon-worshipping religion. With his understanding of Yi Shiwen's arrogance, it must be the case since he had said so. He shouldn't have come here. He shouldn't have come here. Originally, he was an extremely powerful Devil Lord-level existence in the Devil world. He could easily destroy a small world like Zhen Wujie. The reason why Big Brother was able to scare him away, and if I'm not mistaken, it should be because he was seriously injured. Even the sudden resurrection of Bai Ma Jiao this time, I suspect that it has a certain relationship with him. Yi Shiwen said, Even you are not his opponent? Mu Shungjie asked. He was very sure that he had not misheard. Yi Shiwen had said to destroy the world, not to conquer the true martial world. There was no doubt that the difficulty of destroying a world was many times more difficult than conquering a world. He couldn't imagine how terrifying an existence that could destroy a world would be. Even the Star Beast in the past couldn't do it. The Star Beast in the past could only devour planets at most. In the end, it was subdued by the powerhouses of the true martial school. A planet and a world were not the same concept at all. I am also not his opponent. In other words, if he comes back after recovering from his injuries, then the true martial world is almost impossible to survive. Yi Shiwen said with a heavy expression. At this time, Mu Shungjie finally realized the horror of the matter. Although he knew the horror of the Devil Lord, he didn't care too much before. After all, he had been scared away by Huang Wuji. Although the price he paid was Huang Wuji being seriously injured and falling into a coma, there was nothing to be afraid of as long as there was a way to counter and restrain it. However, listening to Yi Shiwen's words, it seemed that the matter was 100 times, 1,000 times more terrible than he had thought before. The existence of a devil that could destroy the world was a terrible threat to the entire world. He didn't know to what extent Yi Shiwen's current skill had reached, and he also didn't know to what extent that devil was powerful. But he was very clear that this problem seemed to be beyond the scope of his ability to deal with. Is he really that strong? Asked Mu Shungjie. Then I will tell you this. If I want to kill you now, it will be effortless. If he wants to kill me, it will also be effortless, said Yi Shiwen faintly. At this time, Mu Shungjie really understood how serious the matter was. He didn't know if Yi Shiwen could kill him effortlessly. However, he knew that Yi Shiwen must be much more tyrannical than him now. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Yi Shiwen to break into his close cultivation place so easily. Even Yi Shiwen said that he had no power to fight back in front of the Devil Lord. The matter was already very obvious. Chapter 1703. I don't want to waste my time on cleaning up the people of the law enforcement hall. The current true martial school doesn't have time to waste on these things, said Yi Shiwen directly. So, I also hope that you won't do anything that will disappoint me. After so many years, you are still the same. You haven't changed. You are still as confident as before, said Mu Xingjie, but I am still a little unwilling. After so many years, I know that you have made great progress, but I have never stopped. Even if I face Wang Wuji, I have the confidence to fight against him. If I can't fight with you now, I will not be willing no matter what. Mu Xingjie's eyes flickered with an inexhaustible fighting intention. He had been defeated by Yi Shiwen for many years. He had accepted his defeat wholeheartedly. However, this didn't mean that he had been completely convinced by Yi Shiwen. After all, that was impossible. After all, they still had a long way to go in life. So, how could they be convinced so easily? He had been practicing hard day and night these past few years, and his martial power had increased with each passing day. In fact, he had already entered into an incredible realm. So, he was confident that he could challenge Yi Shiwen again, even though Yi Shiwen had just said that he could kill Mu Xingjie effortlessly. But he was still unwilling. If he couldn't really fight with Yi Shiwen, he would not be willing even if he died. Yi Shiwen glanced at Mu Xingjie. How could Yi Shiwen not know what Mu Xingjie was thinking? Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen couldn't help but say, well, make your move. Yi Shiwen didn't know what kind of cultivation Mu Xingjie had gone through in the past 100 years. But no matter how he cultivated, it was impossible to break through the limits of the true martial domain or this world. At most, he could only reach the Transcendent Realm first level. Compared to Yi Shiwen, who had now entered the Celestial Realm 9th level, the gap was too big. Then, I will go all out. A dignified look flashed in Mu Xingjie's eyes. The aura on his body instantly boiled up. If it wasn't for the concealment of the array, it could directly shock the world. Immediately after, an earth-shattering cry of a crane came from his body. Faintly, he turned into an incomparably huge crane. Control Crane's 7 divine hands. This was the unique skill that made him famous. For so many years, he had been practicing this martial technique and had long cultivated it to the acme of perfection. Compared to him, Wan Xingheng's Control Crane's 7 divine hands was simply not good enough. It was very childish. Mu Xingjie immediately attacked. He didn't hold back even a little bit because he didn't know. He knew that there was a big gap between him and Yi Shiwen. However, he wasn't willing to accept it. He knew that there was a big gap between him and Yi Shiwen. However, he still wanted to know how big the gap was, even if he knew that there was a big gap between them. Whoosh! A jade-like hand pierced through the void and transformed into a sharp claw. Then, it grabbed Yi Shiwen at an incredible speed. Even the space was penetrated by it. Bang! A loud sound was heard as this big hand grabbed Yi Shiwen's body. However, it only issued a metallic sound. Ripples appeared on Yi Shiwen's body. Mu Xingjie's Control Crane's 7 divine hands couldn't even break the defense of Yi Shiwen's gilded tyrant form. A loud sound was heard. Yi Shiwen hadn't even moved. However, Mu Xingjie couldn't even break Yi Shiwen's defense. An incomparably horrified look flashed in his eyes. He had long known that there was a big disparity between him and Yi Shiwen. However, he had never thought that the disparity would be so big. In fact, he couldn't even move Yi Shiwen. It seemed that Yi Shiwen didn't make a move at all. He didn't even release his chi armor. Even though Mu Xingjie knew that Yi Shiwen's physical body was already extremely tyrannical a long time ago, the battle between him and Yi Shiwen could still be regarded as spectacular. Now, Yi Shiwen didn't even need to make a move and could directly defend against his attack. He still didn't know how big the gap between the two sides was. However, it didn't prevent him from making a judgment. It seemed to have reached an unimaginable level. He didn't make another move. Just one blow was enough. The gap between the two sides was clear at a glance. Mu Xingjie's expression suddenly dimmed. When Yi Shiwen left, many people said that he might not have done the right thing. Without the true martial school's resources, it was unimaginable how far Yi Shiwen could develop. But now, it seemed that Yi Shiwen was right to leave. For many years, since he entered the Transcendent Realm first level, he had been making no progress. Although his cultivation was increasingly profound, he had not been able to break into the Transcendent Realm second level due to the laws of heaven and earth. He was also very distressed. Although a martial artist cultivation was said to go against the natural order, to put it bluntly, it was still within the scope permitted by the natural order. It was just like a computer virus. Although it was extremely destructive, it was also built on the fundamental rules of the computer. In this world, the laws were broken. So, no matter how hard they worked, it was impossible to enter a higher realm. This also made him feel that he seemed to have made the wrong choice this time. But in the end, he was also a talented and bold lord of a generation. He did not entangle himself in this matter. At this time, he looked at Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen had already snatched to the point that he couldn't guess. He couldn't imagine how strong the demon that could easily destroy the true martial domain was. Could it be the legendary demon god? He didn't know. That realm was beyond his imagination. He didn't doubt whether Yi Shiwen was telling the truth or not. That was because with Yi Shiwen's current strength, there was no need for him to lie. He alone could defeat everyone who didn't agree with him. Well, then how do you want me to cooperate? Mu Xingjie looked at Yi Shiwen and said. He knew that Yi Shiwen had already given him enough face by coming to him at this time. Otherwise, with Mu Xingjie's strength, he could directly catch Yi Shiwen off guard. There was no need to consider so much. At this time, Mu Xingjie was not an ungrateful person. I only want you to withdraw from the election and the final election. You don't need to worry about the rest. I want to see what kind of monsters have appeared over the years. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and said, I'll take advantage of this opportunity to clean them all up. Mu Xingjie looked at Yi Shiwen with a wry smile and said, This is not a problem, but the true martial school is like a group of dragons without a leader now. This is not a good phenomenon. In any case, we must elect a new schoolmaster. Although Huang Wuji has made great contributions to our true martial school, we really need someone who can control the situation at this time. As he spoke, he glanced at Yi Shiwen again and said, But since you are messing around, what other problem can there be? No one is more suitable than you. He laughed at himself. No one knew better than him how high Yi Shiwen's prestige in the true martial school was. Although he was not the supreme schoolmaster of the true martial school, the true martial school was able to achieve its current status because of Yi Shiwen's expedition in the last few decades. He fought everywhere, chased away all the extraterrestrial overlords, and unified the true martial domain. In fact, many of those people were still active in the upper echelons of the true martial domain. In fact, as long as he showed up in public, he could immediately control the situation. What kind of opponents, what kind of monsters would dare to stand on the opposite side of him? However, he did not do so. Instead, he looked for Mu Xingjie in private. In that case, what was he planning? Did he really want to wipe out all the opponents in one fell swoop? This is too ruthless. It will be a bloody scene if this happens. It will be a bloody storm, and the Hidden Star Peak's words will carry enormous weight. They will be in control of the true martial world. Thinking of this, Mu Xingjie could not help but sigh. However, at this time, it was not his place to comment on these matters. In this world, only the truly strong could be respected. You don't have to care about these things. If I wanted to, I would have done it long ago. It would not be your turn. Yi Shiwen said faintly, This time, I came to confirm your attitude. I also do not want this matter to be a bloodbath, and blood will flow like a river. I just want to take advantage of the situation to clean up some monsters. As for the person in charge, I think there will naturally be someone more suitable than me. In that case, I will leave first. After Yi Shiwen finished speaking, he disappeared from the secret room that Mu Xingjie did not care about. Mu Xingjie glanced at the place where Yi Shiwen had disappeared and could not help but sigh. For so many years, he had always wanted to fight with Yi Shiwen again to prove that he would not lose to Yi Shiwen. Who knew that the final result would be like this? He had indeed fought with Yi Shiwen as he wished, but the result was so bleak. Yi Shiwen didn't even have the chance to attack, but he had already been defeated. It could almost be said that he was completely defeated. However, he was inexplicably relieved in his heart. For many years, he had suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of Yi Shiwen. It had almost become the existence of a demon in his heart. In the beginning, it was nothing. However, as time passed, Yi Shiwen had gone far away, and his martial arts had become more and more profound. His desire to fight with Yi Shiwen had become stronger and stronger. Gradually, it had become like a demon. Although he was defeated in today's battle, his heart felt as if it had been relieved. He suddenly heaved a big sigh of relief, and his mind became more and more clear. At this time, Yi Shiwen went straight to the inheritance place of the young master's bloodline after coming out of Mu Xingjie's closed-door training place. He arrived in a moment. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.